Hei Xinju was very relaxed. She could not be bothered with these things. The forefather's warning was just a way for her to clear her name. As for the bleeding of Xieji's ears, it was even easier. When she touched Xieji's ears, she threw a few spiritual bees into his ears. The legs of those spiritual bees were stained with bright red flower juice. She just needed to get some from them according to her arrangement. Later, she went to talk to Xieji and took the opportunity to put those spiritual bees back into the spiritual beast bag. As for the remaining flower juice in Xieji's ears, it did not matter at all. After all, the matter was over. It did not matter whether Manager Song believed it or not. As long as he did not have any evidence against her, it was fine. The reason why this guy was deliberately mystifying was that she was not popular among the disciples to begin with. Moreover, the evidence of the explosion of the door was conclusive. If she did not make some gimmicks, who would listen to her? Moreover, with the evidence of Xieji, her words were even more convincing. Because of this, the 8 sword forging halls naturally could not complete the mission. Even Hall Master Zhuge and the others felt much more relaxed. Since they could not complete the mission, they did not have to worry about being punished. Moreover, now that the sword forging hall was in the middle of a storm, the sword pool naturally did not dare to publicly make things difficult for the number 9 sword forging hall at this time, for fear of causing any more trouble. Therefore, the atmosphere in the number 9 forging sword hall was very relaxed recently, and even Hall Master Zhuge's temper was a little better than before. Yun Chujio was also too lazy to compete with him. After a few days in the sword hut, this fellow felt that the time-consuming and laborious task of forging swords should be left to those foolish men. As for the matter of infusing sword intent, she decided to settle down for a period of time. Perhaps one day, she would be able to figure out the key to success. Yun Chujio pondered over it for a few days. She felt that in order to achieve the goal of isolating or even destroying the 9 pavilions, the most important thing was to raise her status. She was only a small handyman now and didn't have any say at all. The only reason she was able to meet Master Ouyang and the others was because she was once the female emperor of Zephyr. Otherwise, a small piece of trash like her wouldn't even be able to meet an elder. After inquiring about the situation, this fellow decided to think of a way to become an outer sect disciple first, and then plan step by step. There was only one way for a handyman of the Nameless Sword sect to become an outer sect disciple, and that was to earn enough sect contribution points. As for the way to earn sect contribution points, that was to accept missions. Every mission completed would earn the corresponding sect contribution points. Yun Chujio could not help but curse in her heart. The Nameless Sword sect's calculations were really shrewd. With such an assessment method, the servants would naturally work for the sect without regrets. Most importantly, it was very difficult to earn sect contribution points. And to become an outer disciple, one had to earn at least 5,000 contribution points. Some servants could not earn 5,000 contribution points even after decades of time. After Yun Chujio asked around, she decided to go to the bounty hall of the lower house to see if there were any suitable missions. Very soon, Yun Chujio arrived at the bounty hall of the lower house. It was filled with odd job workers who came to accept missions. Because some missions were more popular, they were very noisy. Yun Chujio frowned and then looked at the bulletin board. The missions on it were nothing more than running errands, planting, picking, and hunting demon beasts. The corresponding contribution points were also pitifully small. At most, it was only 5 contribution points. Hei Xinjiu counted with her fingers. 5 contribution points per mission. Wouldn't it take 1,000 missions to accumulate 5,000 contribution points? This was too slow. If she accepted these missions step by step, it wouldn't be reliable at all. She had to think of other ways. This guy was never a person who followed the rules. He blinked his eyes and was thinking of a way when a weak voice came from the side. Yun, junior sister Yun, you are also here to accept missions? So it's senior brother Lu. Not bad. I am here to accept a mission, but I haven't seen a suitable one, Yun Chujio said with a smile. The servant in front of her could be considered as an old acquaintance of Yun Chujio. It was the servant who delivered meals to Yun Chujio every now and then, Lu Liang. Lu Liang had always been ostracized in the canteen. Otherwise, he would not have been pushed out to deliver meals to the number 9 sword forging hall. However, ever since he took on this task, his days in the canteen had been a little better. After all, no one was willing to take on this task, so he did not make things difficult for him. Therefore, Lu Liang was still somewhat grateful to Yun Chujiu in his heart. Moreover, he was quite envious of Yun Chujiu's willful personality. That was why he had the courage to come over and greet her. Seeing that Yun Chujiu's attitude was quite kind, Lu Liang became a little more daring. I wonder what kind of mission junior sister Yun is looking for. I am quite familiar with these missions. I can help you introduce them. The corners of Yun Chujiu's mouth curled up. There are many contribution points. Are there any that can earn hundreds or thousands of contribution points in one go? Lu Liang, at this moment, he only had one thought in his mind. He should not have picked a fight with this little pervert. A few hundred contribution points. Why didn't she rob him? Seeing that Lu Liang did not speak, Yun Chujiu knew that there was an 80% chance that it was impossible. Could it be that she could only earn 5 contribution points? At this moment, a male voice said, "Junior Sister Yun, do you want to earn more contribution points? It's not impossible to earn a few hundred contribution points. You can even earn 1,000 contribution points in one go." Yun Chujiu turned her head and saw that the disciple who spoke was very unfamiliar. However, he was wearing the uniform of a handyman, so he should also be a handyman. When the male voice saw Yun Chujiu looking at him, he continued to say politely, "Junior Sister Yun, you may not know me. I am also a disciple of the lower house. However, I am usually in charge of cleaning in the sword hall of the lower house, so you may not have seen me before." Sword hall of the lower house? Yun Chujiu could not help but raise her guard. Previously, Uncle Master Wan and Luo Hai and Yu Bo did not avoid talking in the sword hall. It was obvious that most of the people in the sword hall of the lower house were Elder Wan's people. This man with the croaky voice probably had bad intentions. "Oh, may I know how to address this senior brother? What is the matter with the few hundred contribution points you mentioned just now?" Yun Chujiu asked with a faint smile. "Jarani. Junior Sister Yun can just call me Senior Brother Jia. The mission board is filled with missions that are not difficult. The missions with high contribution points are on the second floor. Junior Sister Yun can consult the manager." The smile on Yun Chujiu's face deepened. Senior Brother Jia's character is indeed the same as his name. "Thank you very much." After Yun Chujiu finished speaking, she turned around and walked towards the manager's office of the Bounty Hall. Lu Liang thought for a moment and followed after her. Jarani first curled his lips in disdain, then his expression became a little ugly. Was it the same as his name? Was Yun Chujiu talking about benevolence or false benevolence? "Junior Sister Yun, I heard that the mission on the second floor is very dangerous. If none of the servants who accepted the mission on the second floor come back alive, don't take the risk. Moreover, I heard that Jarani is not a good person. I'm afraid he doesn't have any good intentions," Lu Liang said in a low voice. Yun Chujiu said indifferently, "Thank you for your reminder, Senior Brother Lu. I'll go up and take a look first. If it doesn't work, then I won't accept it." Lu Liang shook his head. He didn't want anything to happen to Yun Chujiu. After all, if something happened to this little pervert, his situation in the canteen would probably be difficult again. Therefore, he decided to go up to the second floor to take a look as well and think of a way to stop Yun Chujiu from accepting the mission on the second floor. Yun Chujiu and the manager of the bounty hall said that they wanted to go up to the second floor to take a look. The manager glanced at Yun Chujiu a few times. If other odd job workers had made this request, he would definitely sneer at them. However, when he thought of a certain Jiu's glorious history, he quickly opened the entrance to the second floor. Yun Chujiu hopped up to the second floor, and Lu Liang followed her up to the second floor. As expected, there were no other servants on the second floor except for the manager, who was in charge of registration. The manager glanced at Yun Chujiu and Lu Liang with a disdainful look in his eyes. He was certain that they did not dare to accept the mission on the bulletin board. Yun Chujiu's eyes were sparkling, and she was overjoyed. TSK, the missions on the second floor are still better. I can get 5,000 contribution points just by accepting a few missions. That's great, Yun Chujio said excitedly. Lu Liang was speechless. You only saw the contribution points at the back, but look at those abnormal missions at the front. Not to mention the odd job workers. Even inner disciples might not be able to complete these missions. Otherwise, how could there be so many contribution points? However, these missions were more time-consuming, laborious, and dangerous. Therefore, they were eliminated from the middle and upper house missions to the lower house. Yun Chujio naturally knew that these missions were not easy to complete, but this was what made it challenging. She stared at the bulletin board for a while and finally walked to the steward and said, I accepted the 9th mission, which is to go to the Myriad Bone Mountain to find Emo Zhuoshe. Lu Liang sat on the ground. Among all the missions, going to the Myriad Bone Mountain to find Emo Zhuoshe was the most contribution points. It was a total of 1,000 contribution points, but it was also the most dangerous. Not to mention Yun Chujio, who was only a small handyman in the 9th level of the spirit transformation realm. Even inner sect disciples who went to Mount Wangu had to team up before they dared to go in. Moreover, there was no guarantee that they would be able to come out unscathed. Wasn't she courting death? The manager in charge of the registration also had a dull look on his face. He thought that he had heard wrongly and asked with some uncertainty, You said that you were going to take the mission to Mount Wangu to look for Emo Zhuoshe? Yun Chujio nodded with certainty and handed over the identity jade token. Please help me register. The manager endured it and said, Mount Wangu is very dangerous and Emo Zhuoshe is hard to find. Are you sure? Yun Chujio nodded again. Thank you for the reminder, but I still want to try. Seeing that Yun Chujio was determined, Manager Ming could only shake his head. Then, he took Yun Chujio's identity jade token and began to register. Yun Chujio said to Lu Liang beside her, Senior brother Lu, why don't we go together? Lu Liang shook his head like a rattledrum. He didn't want to die. He was basically certain that he would soon return to the days of being bullied because Yun Chujio was dead for sure. After the steward finished registering, he handed Yun Chujio a token to enter the sect. Only then did Yun Chujio and Lu Liang go down to the second floor. Jiarani immediately came up and asked eagerly, Junior Sister Yun, I didn't lie to you, did I? Is the mission on the second floor full of contribution points? Yun Chujio smiled and nodded. Thank you, Senior Brother Jia. I accepted the mission to look for Emo Zhuoshe on Mount Wangu. When I become an outer disciple, I will definitely thank you properly. Jiarani was also stunned when he heard that Yun Chujio had accepted the mission to look for Emo Zhuoshe at the Myriad Bone Mountain. He thought that Yun Chujio would at most accept a mission of 100 contribution points. He did not expect that Yun Chujio would actually seek death by accepting the mission to look for Emo Zhuoshe at the Myriad Bone Mountain. Wasn't she seeking her own death? However, his smile quickly changed. He pretended to be polite for a while before he left in a hurry. Yun Chujio sneered in her heart. She naturally knew what Jiarani had gone to do. It was nothing more than to send a message and take credit for it. Lu Liang tried to persuade Yun Chujio again, wanting to rein her in. In the end, when he saw that Yun Chujio had made up her mind, he could only leave dejectedly. Pete and 0ve1 therefore, Yun Chujio only sent a message to Zhuge Dong when she arrived at the gate of the sect. Then, she swaggered out of the mountain gate. Yun Chujio summoned her flying spirit tool and quickly disappeared without a trace. On the other side, after Elder Wan received the news, his heart was instantly filled with joy. There were many misgivings in the sect if he wanted to make a move, but once that wretched girl left the sect, there was only death awaiting her. Elder Wan immediately arranged for people to go to the Myriad Bone Mountain to chase after Yun Chujio. He was determined to kill Yun Chujio with his life. Not only that, the 9-layered pavilion also received the news that Tower Master Luochen had personally led people to the Myriad Bone Mountain to capture Yun Chujio. After all, if Yun Chujio was in the sect, he would not be able to make a move due to the reputation of the Nameless Sword sect. Unfortunately, These people waited until the seas dried up and the rocks turned rotten, but they still did not see He Xinjiu. Not only that, the two sides even fought due to suspicions and misunderstandings. The people sent by Elder One were no match for the 9 pavilions. More than half of them were dead or injured, and they fled back in a sorry state. When Elder One received the news, he nearly vomited blood. Could that damned Yun Chujiu know the invisibility spell? They had set up an inescapable net, so how could they not find her whereabouts? Actually, the reason was very simple. He Xinjiu did not go to the bullshit Myriad Bone Mountain at all. At this moment, a certain Jiu who had already taken the transfiguration pill was strolling around the city near the nameless sword sect. It was simply too carefree. This fellow was so smart. How could he be so stupid as to really go to the Myriad Bone Mountain to be a live target? He was just fooling around with those people. As for Immerse was sure, He Xinjiu had a lot of it in her storage ring. They were all stolen from Xiao Hei's cave abode back then. When the time came, she could just casually get a few pieces to hand over to them. After He Xinjiu had enough of showing off outside, she bought a bunch of food and a bunch of random things before returning to the nameless sword sect. The news that Yun Chujiu had accepted Imo Shuasher's mission had already spread throughout the lower house. Therefore, when everyone saw that Yun Chujiu had returned safely, they were all dumbfounded. Initially, they thought that Yun Chujiu would definitely die in the Myriad Bone Mountain. Who would have thought that not only did she return alive and kicking, she was also in high spirits. It was not like she had escaped death, but it was more like she had gone somewhere to have fun. However, everyone soon felt that they had guessed the truth. Perhaps Yun Chujiu would regret it after accepting the mission and did not go to the Myriad Bone Mountain at all. She only went out for a stroll. That's right, junior sister Yun. Just tell us the truth. We won't laugh at you. Young people are really ambitious. After suffering a few more setbacks, they will know what it means to be extremely ambitious. Yun Chujiu only smiled and did not say anything. She strolled towards the bounty hall. When everyone saw that Yun Chujiu did not respond, they thought that Yun Chujiu was too ashamed to tell the truth. They all followed behind her and were ready to laugh at Yun Chujiu's misfortune. Lu Liang was overjoyed when he heard the news of Yun Chujiu's return. He did not care whether Yun Chujiu found Imo sure or not, as long as this little pervert came back. Thus, he rushed to the bounty hall. Junior sister Yun, you're back? That's great. It doesn't matter if you didn't find Imo sure. Hurry up and return the jade token to the manager. Then, take on a suitable mission on the first floor. I think a mission to look after the herbs would be good. Lu Liang could not stop babbling, perhaps because he was too excited. Yun Chujiu glanced at him and was about to go up to the second floor to hand in the mission. Unexpectedly, the manager on the first floor said, "Just hand over the jade token to me. There's no need to go up to the second floor." When the manager on the first floor said this, his tone was quite contemptuous. He knew that this Yun Chujiu would never be able to complete the mission on the second floor. Yun Chujiu seemed to not notice his contempt. She walked to him with a smile and took out a piece of inkshua stone and placed it on the table.
Boom.
The crowd immediately exploded. Oh my god, this Yun Chujiu actually found the inkshua stone, and it completely fits the size of the requirements. I got 1,000 contribution points. The steward was also very surprised. He paused and said, "Congratulations, you have successfully completed the mission. Pass me the identity jade token, and I will help you record the contribution points." Yun Chujiu smiled slightly, no rush. I want to ask, is one piece of black shua stone worth 1,000 contribution points? If I have 5 pieces, can you give me 5,000 contribution points directly? The steward was stunned at first. Then he sneered. Of course, but don't be too greedy. The ink stone is different from other minerals. It's scattered. Not to mention 5 pieces. Even finding 2 pieces at once is an extremely difficult thing. The onlookers also pursed their lips. This Yun Chujiu was too complacent. She was already burning incense after finding 1 piece. Why would she dream of having 5 pieces? This was simply nonsense. Just as everyone was discussing, Yun Chujio took out an inkstone and placed it on the table. Before everyone could cry out in surprise, another inkstone was placed on the table. Everyone looked at the 5 inkstones on the table in silence. Did Yun Chujio really find 5 inkstones? Many people even rubbed their eyes. They felt that everything in front of them was so unreal, as if they were dreaming. The manager was also stunned. Did she really find 5 Inkshwa stones? What did 5 Inkshwa stones mean? That was 5,000 contribution points. Wouldn't Yun Chujio be directly converted to an outer disciple? The steward was stunned for a while before transferring the 5,000 contribution points to Yun Chujio's identity jade token. Then, he said dryly, go to the miscellaneous affairs hall to handle the following procedures. Yun Chujio thanked the steward politely and then walked out of the bounty hall unhurriedly. The disciples looked at Yun Chujio's back with envy and jealousy. Yun Chujio's luck was too good, wasn't it? She went out, and not only did she not die, she even got 5 pieces of black Shwa stones. How many odd job workers had not collected 5,000 contribution points in decades? Yun Chujio just went out for a walk and collected enough? Yun Chujio had only entered the sect for a total of 2 months, right? She had actually become an outer disciple so easily? Lu Liang was even more regretful and wanted to bang his head against the wall. If he had known earlier, he would have agreed to go to Mount Wangu with Yun Chujio. It was too late to say anything now. After Yun Chujio became an outer disciple, she would definitely not stay in the number 9 sword forging hall anymore. Then, wouldn't his future days be miserable again? Yun Chujio happily went to the odd job hall and placed the identity jade token in front of Manager Yu. Manager Yu, help me to handle the procedures for the identity conversion. Manager Yu was confused. He was a little confused when he saw Yun Chujio appear in front of him. Didn't she go to Mount Wangu to die? Why did she come back? Also, what identity change? Yun Chujio, what identity change did you say? Do you have a document? Yun Chujio frowned. Document? The bounty hall didn't give me a document. Didn't they say that a sect can be converted to an outer sect disciple after reaching 5,000 contribution points? What document? Manager Yu opened his mouth wide. You mean you've earned 5,000 contribution points? Yun Chujio didn't say anything. She just handed over the identity jade token in her hand. After Manager Yu looked at the contribution points inside, he was dumbfounded. This Yun Chujio should be the handyman who turned into an outer disciple at the fastest speed in the history of the Nameless Sword Sect, right? Manager Yu finally calmed down with great difficulty and then began to help Yun Chujio with the relevant procedures. The treatment of outer disciples was much better than that of handymen. Not only did they not have to work, but they could also receive a certain amount of sect supplies every month. They could also enter the lower houses sword hall to learn sword techniques. Manager Yu then pointed to a notice board at the side and said, "The red on it is already full of people. You can choose any of the remaining green dots." Full of people? Do you mean that there are several people living in each courtyard? Yun Chujio asked, puzzled. 4 outer sect disciples share a courtyard, but the rooms are independent. It's not bad. Manager Yu was quite patient with Yun Chujio. PN0V1 calm. There's no one with their own house? Even if the location is slightly off, it's fine if the conditions are slightly worse. Manager Yu shook his head. If you want a house with only one house, you'll have to become an inner disciple. Outer disciples don't have this kind of treatment. Yun Chujio couldn't help but curse in her heart. The Nameless Sword Sect was such a big place, yet they were so stingy. Can't they build a few more courtyards? Yun Chujio was about to tell Manager Yu that she might as well just stay in Sword Forging Hall number 9. She didn't expect someone to come over and say, "Manager Yu, it's not like there's no separate courtyard. Have you forgotten that place?" The one who spoke was a disciple of the Miscellaneous Affairs Hall. After hearing his words, Manager Yu frowned. Aren't outer sect disciples supposed to have 4 people in a courtyard? Where is there a separate courtyard? The disciple pointed at a corner on the bulletin board. Manager Yu, have you forgotten that there's another courtyard here? Manager Yu followed the direction of the disciple's finger and frowned even more. Nonsense. It's not like you don't know that there's something strange about that courtyard. It's been abandoned for many years. How can there be people living there? That's because the people who live there are all ordinary people. If a genius like Junior Sister Yun were to live there, perhaps nothing would happen. Junior Sister Yun, don't tell me you don't dare to try? The disciple said with a slightly provocative tone. Yun Chujio smiled faintly. Why wouldn't I dare? Manager Yu, then I'll live in that courtyard. Manager Yu was about to persuade her, but coincidentally, someone came to look for Manager Yu to talk about something else. The disciple received Yun Chujio's jade token attentively and helped her with the formalities. Junior Sister Yun, when you arrive at the courtyard, you can use your identity jade token to open the restriction of the courtyard. In addition, unless you become an inner disciple, you can't change the courtyard. When the disciple said the last sentence, he seemed to be gloating. Got it. Thank you for the reminder, senior brother. Yun Chujio glanced at the disciple with a slightly cold gaze. Another person had appeared on the black ledger in her heart. The disciple could not help but feel a little guilty. He had thought that Yun Chujio would find fault with him, but he did not expect Yun Chujio to leave so slowly. After Manager Yu finished dealing with the matters on the other side, he saw a green at the corner of the bulletin board. He glared at the disciple and sighed in his heart. Yun Chujio lived in such a courtyard. She should seek her own fortune. Yun Chujio did not go directly to her new residence. Instead, she first went to number 9 Sword Forging Hall. Hall Masters Yuga and Dongxi were very happy for Yun Chujio when they learned that Yun Chujio had become an outer disciple. After all, the treatment of outer disciples was much better than that of laborers. Zhuge Bei said with some reluctance, Junior Sister Yun, are you going to move out in the future? You must remember to come back and visit us often. Zhuge Dong also smiled and said, it's good to move out. When the time comes, 4 female disciples will be living in a courtyard. Junior Sister Yun will be able to make more friends. Zhuge Bei curled his lips. What's good about that? Who knows what the character of the 3 people who live together is like? Junior Sister Yun is so pure and kind, she will be bullied. Zhuge Dong, he really wanted to ask Zhuge Bei, are you blind? This little pervert is still so pure and kind? Pand DN0VE1 Xiaomei Private Courtyard? Hall Master Zhuge and the north, south, east, and west were all stunned. Everyone knew that the outer disciples were all 4 people in a room. How could Yun Chujio be assigned to a private courtyard's dormitory? Yun Chujio told them everything that had happened. She pointed at a place on the map and said, here, it's here. Hall Master Zhuge's expression immediately changed. Nonsense. You can't live here at all. That disciple of the Miscellaneous Affairs Hall is obviously trying to trick you. You don't have to move anymore. You should still live here. East, west, south, and north didn't look too good either. Zhuge Dong sighed. Junior Sister Yun, you're usually quite smart. Why did you fall for it so easily this time? Yun Chujio blinked her eyes and asked, Senior Brother Dong, what's wrong with this courtyard? This courtyard is a famous haunted house in the Nameless Sword sect. Any disciple who stays there for less than a month will definitely suffer from chi deviation. In the beginning, many people did not believe it, but those who went in without exception suffered from chi deviation. As time passed, this courtyard remained empty. So, Junior Sister Yun, you should still stay here. Don't move in. Zhuge Dong said with a serious expression. Unfortunately, after Zhuge Dong finished speaking, he didn't see any fear on Yun Chujio's face. Instead, that little pervert's eyes were sparkling with interest. Pete and 0v1 come after He Xinjie said that, she ran out of number 9 Sword Forging Hall, ignoring the shouts of Hall Master Zhuge. Hall Master Zhuge was so angry that he gritted his teeth. This little girl was too ridiculous. Hall Master, you don't have to worry too much. That courtyard hasn't been occupied for a long time. It must be very dilapidated. Junior Sister Yun might regret it after seeing it, Zhuge Dong comforted him. Hall Master Zhuge felt that what he said made sense. That little girl was just curious. Perhaps she would back out after knowing the difficulty. Hei Shinjo hopped towards her new residence as she pondered in her heart. Chi deviation? She wanted to see what exactly caused it. The reason why this fellow was so confident was because she had the black pearl. All kinds of mental demons were like floating clouds in front of her. Yun Chujia's courtyard was in the northernmost part of the outer sect disciples' dormitory district. Furthermore, it was still some distance away from the dormitory district. It stood there alone. Some of the outer sect disciples who had received the news looked at Yun Chujio from afar. Their mouths twitched. This Yun Chujio was really stupid. She actually chose that famous haunted house. Wasn't she looking for trouble? It wouldn't be long before this Yun Chujio would go crazy. Yun Chujio naturally didn't take the discussions of these people to heart. She went to the entrance of a courtyard and used her identity jade token to open the restriction. Then, she pushed open the courtyard door. The courtyard was a barren scene. There were weeds all over the ground. Even the roof had weeds growing on it. It seemed that no one had lived there for a long time. Yun Chujio closed the courtyard door and opened the restriction again. Then, she let out puppet number 4 and puppet number 5 to clear the weeds on the ground. She jumped onto the roof and began to clear the weeds on the roof. Soon, the weeds on the courtyard and the roof were cleared. Yun Chujio squatted on the roof and looked at the small courtyard. She felt that it was not bad. There were 4 rooms in total, and the yard was quite spacious. Even if the pretty boy came with black chicken head and the little lunatic, it would be enough to live in. The most important thing was that there were no other dormitories around. It was very private, so she felt more at ease living in it. Yun Chujio tidied up the 4 rooms again. Although the furniture inside had fallen a lot of dust, it was still good after it was wiped clean. After such a busy meal, the sky was already dark. Yun Chujio casually ate something and then let Buttface out. Buttface had a good meal in the yard and then went into Yun Chujio's bedroom. Little fairy, why do you think those people went mad? Before Yun Chujio could answer, Buttface continued, but little fairy, you definitely won't go mad because your heart is black. You have been a little devil for a long time. Yun Chujio, get lost. Chapter 3806. Fear of Ghosts. Buttface. Yun Chujio taught Buttface a lesson and then ordered him to keep watch while she lay comfortably on the bed and fell asleep. First, Buttface dutifully checked the yard and found nothing unusual. Then, he lay down beside Yun Chujio's bed and began to chew on the bones happily. This guy was most likely born with the shell of a dog, so his habits became more and more like a dog. He liked to chew on the bones whenever he had nothing to do. In the middle of the night, Yun Chujio was sleeping soundly when there was a knock on the door. Before Buttface could react, Yun Chujio shouted with a face full of killing intent. Who is it? Is there something wrong with you? Why are you knocking on the door in the middle of the night? Get lost. The knocking on the door suddenly stopped as if nothing had happened. Buttface was also shocked by a certain Geo shout. He thought to himself that he had to learn a lesson in the future. He must not disturb this little demon's sleep. This little demon was too angry when he woke up. Buttface originally wanted to go out and check, but he was afraid that he would wake Yun Chujio up. In the end, he laid on the ground and did not move. This time, nothing unusual happened until the sky was bright. Yun Chujio was awakened by the vibration of the identity jade plate. She unhappily probed her spiritual sense and found that it was a message from Zhugadong. It was nothing more than to confirm her condition. Yun Chujio endured her anger and replied a few words. Then, she lay on the bed like a little bastard and continued to sleep. It was not until noon that Hei Shinju stretched herself and got out of bed. Buttface flattered her. Little fairy, you are even more beautiful today than yesterday. Come and read on our website Wuxia World site. Thanks. Yun Chujio glanced at him and slowly washed up. Then, she opened the courtyard door with Buttface. She wanted to see who was knocking on the door in the middle of the night. When she arrived at the courtyard door, she saw that there were no footprints of other people or demon beasts other than her own footprints yesterday. Buttface covered his mouth with his paw. Little fairy, it must be a ghost. It's a ghost. I'm so scared. Yun Chuju sneered. If only it's really a ghost. I can catch a few to play with. Buttface could not help but shiver. Damn, this little demon was not human at all. She actually wanted to catch a ghost to play with. It scared the baby to death. Yun Chuju looked at Buttface with disdain. Was this coward an ancient fierce beast? It was so hilarious. Buttface, what's the difference between a ghost and a remnant soul? If you're not afraid of a remnant soul, why are you afraid of a ghost? Buttface shivered. How is that the same? A remnant soul can't float outside, but a ghost can. Moreover, ghosts don't make any sound when they walk. They float and float. It's so scary. The ghosts that float out are all resentful. They strangle people's necks whenever they want. Woo-woo. How terrifying. Yun Chujo really couldn't be bothered with this idiot. Wasn't he just a drifter? What was there to be afraid of? The most terrifying thing in this world wasn't any demons or ghosts, but the human heart. After Yun Chujo turned around, a cunning look flashed across Buttface's eyes. The little girl was still too inexperienced. She didn't even know that the ghosts it was talking about weren't ghosts, but the ghost race. That was a terrifying clan. When Dog 2 thought of this, its whole body trembled again. It hurriedly chased after Yun Chujo. Yun Chujo had a simple breakfast. Originally, she wanted to leave Dog 2 in the yard to look after the house. However, Dog 2 cried so much that it didn't leave any tears behind. Yun Chujo had no choice but to put it into the spirit beast bag. Chapter 3807. Receiving the sex resources. Yun Chujo was speechless at Buttface. Why was this idiot getting more and more cowardly? Yun Chujo left the courtyard and was about to go to Sword Forging Hall No. 9 for a stroll when she unexpectedly met Zhuge Dong on the way. Although Zhuge Dong had communicated with Yun Chujo in the morning, he still wanted to see with his own eyes. Now that he saw that Yun Chujo was alive and kicking, he was relieved. Junior Sister Yun, it just so happens that today is the first day of the Lunar New Year. Let's go. It'll bring you to collect the sex resources for the outer sect disciples. Yun Chujo had heard Zhuge Bei mutter that because they had not completed their mission, the sex resources were always withheld. She was really curious about what the so-called sex resources were. Thus, Yun Chujo followed Zhuge Dong to the miscellaneous office. Very quickly, Yun Chujo received her own sex resources. It turned out to be 2 bottles of pills. The label on the bottle said that it was a 9 transformation spirit pill. Yun Chujo knew that this 9 transformation spirit pill was a level 27 pill. Although she had never refined it, she did not think that it was anything precious. This guy muttered softly, I thought it was something good, but there are only these 2 bottles of broken things. The corner of Zhuge Dong's eyes twitched violently. Broken things? The outer disciples were about to break their heads because of the 9 Revolutions Spirit Gathering pill. It was only then that Yun Chujo noticed that Zhuge Dong did not receive the sex supplies. She asked curiously, Senior Brother Dong, why aren't you going to receive them? The sex supplies for our Sword Forging Hall's disciples are not collected at the General Affairs Office, but at the Stewarding Hall of the Sword Pool. Zhuge Dong was a little apprehensive. He did not know if the sex supplies would be distributed in full this month. Come and read on our website Wuxia World site. Thanks. Ever since the big kitchen knife swallowed half of the sword light, He Xinjiu did not dare to go near the sword pool because of her guilty conscience. After hearing Zhuge Dong's words, she thought it would be good to go to the edge of the sword pool to repent. Therefore, this guy accompanied Zhuge Dong to the sword pool. Zhuge Dong went in to collect the sex resources, while He Xinjiu went to the sword pool at the side. This guy looked at the sword pool that was no longer as glorious as before, and his conscience was a little painful. He estimated that if he wanted to restore the sword pool to its previous appearance, he would have to throw at least 100,000 swords into it. It was all because of that greedy big kitchen knife. While Yun Chujo was repenting by the side of the sword pool, Zhuge Dong came over with an unsightly expression and called for her to leave. Yun Chujo caught a glimpse of Zhuge Dong's expression and asked in puzzlement, Senior Brother Dong, what happened? Zhuge Dong said with some anger, the stewarding hall of the sword pool has deducted more than half of our sect's resources again. It's really going too far. Yun Chujio frowned. Why did they deduct your sect's resources? Didn't they not complete the mission last month? They said that the other sword forging hall didn't complete the mission because there was a problem with the earth fire, but there was no problem with the earth fire of our number 9 sword forging hall, so they had to deduct the sect's resources. Senior Brother Dong, can't you tell them that the other sword forging hall has several more disciples than our number 9 sword forging hall? Zhuge Dong smiled bitterly. Of course I did. However, the steward said that if they didn't consider the fact that our number 9 forging sword hall has fewer people, they would have kicked us out of the number 9 forging sword hall. Yun Chuju narrowed her eyes. She was a little angry. However, she thought that it was not a big deal to just confiscate some of the sect's resources. Moreover, Hall Master Zhuge and the 5 steamed buns did not resist. She did not have to fight with them. Therefore, she did not say anything and prepared to leave the sword pool with Zhuge Dong and go to the number 9 sword forging hall to see the others. Chapter 3808. Attacking at the first sign of disagreement, Yun Chujio and Zhuge Dong had only taken a few steps when they heard someone say sarcastically, "Hey, isn't this Yun Chujio who got advice from the patriarch? Is there a need for you to come to the sword pool to cultivate? Can't you just eat a few poisonous mushrooms when you have nothing to do?" Everyone burst into laughter when they heard that, and all of them winked at Yun Chujio. When Yun Chujio was still a handyman, these disciples still had a faint sense of superiority, so they felt that Yun Chujio's words were quite interesting, so they weren't dissatisfied. However, they didn't expect that Yun Chujio had dog shit and luck, and she actually turned into an outer sect disciple so quickly. They were more or less uncomfortable in their hearts. Those female disciples originally had enmity towards Yun Chujio because of Tower Master Luochen, and now they were even more displeased with her. A good dog doesn't stand in the way. Get lost. Yun Chujio was already angry in her heart, but now that she saw this person deliberately provoking her, she immediately found a way to vent her anger. That disciple was stunned at first, and then said angrily, "What did you say? Say it again." Yun Chujio was about to speak, but Zhuge Dong whispered to her, "Junior sister Yun, this Li Zhuangji is the son of manager Li of the sword pool. Don't offend him, let's go." Li Zhuangji also heard Zhuge Dong's words. He snorted coldly, "What? Are you afraid now? It's too late. Let me tell you, Yun Chujio, if you don't apologize to me today and compensate me for a certain amount of damages, you can forget about leaving this place." Damages? How much do you want? Yun Chujio raised her eyebrows. Li Zhuangji had long heard that this Yun Chujio was actually the southern continent's female emperor of Zephyr. She must be very rich. He opened his mouth wide and said, 1,000,000 high-grade spirit stones. Yun Chujio curled her lips. 1,000,000 high-grade spirit stones? That's too little. How can you be so cheap? Come and read on our website Wuxiao World site. Thanks you. Stupid girl, if you don't do as I say today, I'll teach you a lesson. Li Zhuangji had always been successful because of his father's relationship. Now that he was being ridiculed by Yun Chujio, he was naturally very angry. Yun Chujio did not reply, but only stretched her wrists. Just when everyone was wondering what Yun Chujio was going to do, Yun Chujio had already arrived in front of Li Zhuangji. Taking advantage of the time when Li Zhuangji did not react, she took advantage of the situation. She restrained his spiritual power and then gave him a good beating. "Fuck, I told you to block my path. I told you to covet my money. I told you to threaten me. I'll beat you to death." Other than Yun Chujio's rhythmic cursing, only Li Zhuangzi's miserable wails were heard because everyone was dumbfounded. The Nameless Sword sect had never seen such a person who attacked at the slightest disagreement. Because the sect rules strictly forbade fellow disciples from killing each other, disciples who got into a fight would be punished by the sect rules. Only then did they realize that this Yun Chujio had a criminal record. On the day she had just entered the sect, she had already beaten up Elder Wan's grandson. On the second day after she had entered the sect, she had also beaten up the servants of the lower house's canteen. Later on, She had even blown up 8 gates of the forging sword hall. Everyone could not help but take a few steps back. How could they forget that this Yun Chujio in front of them was a fearless person? It was really not a wise move to provoke her, especially those disciples who had joined in the jeering just now. They tried their best to reduce their presence, afraid that Yun Chujio would beat them up too. After Yun Chujio beat Li Zhuangji into a pig's head, only then did she feel that the pent-up anger from the morning and the depression from just now had been released. She kicked Li Zhuangji again and then said fiercely, "Remember next time, a good dog doesn't block the path. If you block my path again, I will beat you until even your mother doesn't recognize you." Chapter 3809. The surging killing intent. Li Zhuangji was in pain and anger. He gritted his teeth and said, "Damn girl, just you wait. I won't let you off." Yun Chujio looked at him with disdain. She took out a piece of paper and started writing. Then, she grabbed Li Zhuangzi's hand and pressed a handprint on the paper. Li Zhuangji had a bad feeling in his heart. He asked with a trembling voice, What is this?" "A loan. It says here that you borrowed 2 million high-grade spirit stones from me today, and you will pay it back within 3 months. If you don't pay it back by then, in the future, your sex resources will be sent to me to pay off the debt until it is paid off," Yun Chujio said with a smile. Unfortunately, this smile fell into Li Zhuangzi's eyes, and it was like an evil spirit. You forced me to press this. It doesn't count at all." Yun Chujio shrugged and took out a large kitchen knife from her storage ring. She gestured at the crowd. "I forced you to press it? Do you have any witnesses? Come, let me ask you, who saw me force him?" Some of the surrounding disciples disdained to participate in such a fight. Some didn't want to stir up trouble, and some were afraid that Yun Chujio would burn them with anger, so they remained silent. Yun Chujio's pupils suddenly shrank. She took the large kitchen knife and cut Li Zhuangzi's face. Instantly, Li Zhuangji howled like a pig being slaughtered. Everyone was shocked. What did this Yun Chujio want to do? She had already beaten Li Zhuangji up. Why did she still want to cut him? Yun Chujio held the large kitchen knife that was dripping with blood and shook it. Then, she showed a very bright smile. "You all remember. This idiot fell down and fell like this. If anyone talks nonsense, I will bleed him. Also, although I, Yun Chujio, have low spiritual power and am only an outer disciple, if anyone dares to provoke me, I will make them regret being born in this world. If you don't believe me, let's try." After saying that, Yun Chujio did not call Zhugadong. She directly took the bloody kitchen knife and left the sword pool. Come and read on our website Wuxia World site. Thanks. Zhugadong was worried and quickly chased after her. Just as he was about to say something, Yun Chujio said in a hurry, "Senior brother Dong, I will visit you another day. I will go back to the dormitory first." After Yun Chujio finished speaking, she left in a hurry, without waiting for Zhugadong's reply. Zhugadong frowned. He guessed that since junior sister Yun had caused trouble again, Manager Li would definitely not let it go. Could it be that junior sister Yun had gone back to think of a solution? He was stunned for a moment and decided to tell Hall Master Zhuge about the matter. Although he knew that Hall Master Zhuge could not help much, it was always good to have more people to think of a solution. Yun Chujio sped all the way and finally arrived at her own courtyard. After she entered the courtyard, she panted heavily and directly collapsed on the ground. After a long while, she looked at the large kitchen knife in her hand with a complicated gaze. Yun Chujio originally did not intend to cut Li Zhuangji, but at that time, a thought suddenly emerged in her mind. Kill him.
Kill him.
She managed to suppress the surging killing intent with great difficulty, and in the end, she only cut Li Zhuangzi's face. Could it be because of a large kitchen knife? However, the spiritual consciousness of the large kitchen knife had not appeared again since the last time it appeared by chance, and it looked very ignorant. Logically speaking, it shouldn't have such a strong consciousness. What exactly was going on? Yun Chujio could not understand it, so she simply released the dumb cubs and asked for their opinions. Chapter 38:10. Was she possessed? When the kitten heard Yun Chujia's words, it was delighted. Haha, this wretched girl was obviously possessed. She might very soon vomit blood, and her spiritual power would plummet. In the end, she would go crazy or die. This was great. The kitten's eyes flashed with a flash of pride, but it was caught by the little black bird. Xiao Hanio suddenly said, "Master, the kitten said that it knows what's going on." Xiao Hanio, Yun Chuju looked at Xiao Hanio and asked, "Speak. If you know and don't report it, HMPH. Xiao Hanio's heart was like a dog that had been bald. Damn, ugly bird. If there was a chance in the future, he would be the first to eat it. Xiao Hanio originally wanted to groan and muddle through, but when he saw Yun Chujia's cold gaze, he could not help but tell the truth. That, master, you seem to have gone mad." After saying that, the kitten was extremely vexed. Why did he tell the truth? It was really useless. Yun Chujio frowned. Had he gone mad? Logically speaking, if he had gone mad, how could Blackbeard not react? Buttface suddenly cried out, "Little fairy, how is it? I told you that this place is haunted. Let's quickly move to another place. This place is too scary." Yun Chujio glanced at Buttface, and her heart skipped a beat. Could this place really be a haunted house? Had she gone mad after staying here for one night? Just as Yun Chujio was puzzled, Meng Yanshou suddenly said, "Someone is coming. Come and read on our website Wuxia World site." Thanks. Yun Chujio immediately put Silly Meng into her spirit beast bag and took out a spirit fruit to chew on. A moment later, there was a knock on the door. "Yun Chujio, someone reported that you beat up a fellow disciple. Come with us to the discipline hall." Yun Chujio's eyes flashed. Since she had the guts to beat someone up, she was naturally not afraid of being punished. If it was not for the unforeseen circumstances that happened later, she would have gone straight to the discipline hall. After beating someone up, the villain would complain first. Yun Chujio opened the courtyard door. She said to the discipline hall's disciples, "My courtyard is a haunted house. Aren't you afraid of going mad? Next time, just use your identity jade token to inform me. You don't have to come and arrest me personally. I'm very self-aware." When the discipline hall disciples heard Yun Chujio's words, they hurriedly retreated some distance. Yes, they almost forgot that this was a haunted house. However, they felt the taste in Yun Chujio's words. Next time? It seemed that this person was not going to stop. Ever since she entered the sect, their discipline hall would receive reports about her every once in a while. This little girl was really a troublemaker. Yun Chujio followed the discipline hall's disciples to the discipline hall's small square. Li Zhuangji was supported by someone and stood at the side. Beside him stood a middle-aged man. He must be Manager Li. When Li Zhuangji saw Yun Chujio, he wished he could pounce on her and strangle her to death. Although Manager Li was very calm, his eyes were full of killing intent. Manager Song looked at the discipline hall's regular customers in front of him and silently sighed in his heart. How long had it been? This person had caused trouble again.
Just as he was thinking about it,
He heard Yun Chujio shout, "Manager Song, you have to make a decision for me. I suffered a great grievance in the sword pool today. If it wasn't for the seniors of the discipline hall who came in time, I would have hanged myself." The discipline hall disciples looked at each other in confusion. Hang themselves? They remembered that when this little girl opened the door for them, she was still chewing on a spiritual fruit. Don't tell them that she intended to be a glutton. Chapter 38:11. Killing intent reappeared. Li Zhuangji was so angry that he gritted his teeth. "Yun Chujio, you're spouting nonsense. You were clearly the one who beat me to such a state, and you even forced me to write you a loan of 2 million yuan. You're simply the villain who complained first." Yun Chujio looked at Li Zhuangji in disbelief. You, how can you be so shameless? You were clearly the one who fell to such a state. What has it got to do with me? On the other hand, you threatened me not to go to the sword pool to cultivate in the future, and even said that the sword pool belonged to your Li family. It was up to your Li family to decide who went and who didn't go. You also said that if you want to go to the sword pool, it's not impossible. You asked me to lend you 2 million high-grade spirit stones. I'm such a timid person, so I had no choice but to give you 2 million high-grade spirit stones. Later, you seem to have committed a crime. You beat yourself up, and even cut your own face. I took the opportunity to let you write in debit note, so that you wouldn't go back on your word. Manager Song, this is the whole process. If you don't believe me, you can ask the disciples who went to the sword pool to cultivate today. They all saw it with their own eyes. The corner of Manager Song's eyes twitched violently. If it wasn't for the fact that a disciple of the discipline hall happened to be cultivating by the sword pool and told him the whole process, he might have really believed this nonsense of Yun Chuzhou. Li Zhuangji was so angry that his fingers were trembling. He wanted to argue, but his anger attacked his heart, and he actually fainted from anger. Yun Chuzhou spread out her hands. Manager Song, did you see that? He fainted because he had a guilty conscience. Manager Song, at this time, Manager Li sneered. Yun Chuzhou, you really have a sharp tongue. Do you think that everyone will be afraid of you and won't come out to testify? Heaven's net is wide open, but it doesn't leak out. You will definitely be punished by the sect rules today. Come and read on our website Wuxia World site. Thanks. Yun Chuzhou narrowed her eyes. This Manager Li was much better than his good-for-nothing son. There was a witness? Then there was. After Manager Li and Manager Song greeted each other, a few disciples squeezed in from the crowd and described what happened. Of course, they skipped over the part where Li Zhuangji provoked Yun Chuzhou. They pushed all the blame onto Yun Chuzhou. One of the disciples even said, Manager Song, this Yun Chuzhou used a kitchen knife to cut junior brother Li. You can compare it. Manager Song really knew that Yun Chuzhou had a big kitchen knife. She used this kitchen knife to compete with Master Ouyang. Therefore, Manager Song said, Yun Chuzhou, hand over that kitchen knife. I'll let someone check it. Yun Chuzhou did not object. She took out the large kitchen knife from her storage ring. However, as soon as she held the large kitchen knife in her hand, a monstrous killing intent appeared in her mind again. She wished that she could kill everyone present. Yun Chuzhou managed to control the killing intent in her body with great difficulty. She was afraid that there was something wrong with the large kitchen knife, so she had no choice but to put it away. Yun Chuzhou's face was pale, and her forehead was covered with fine beads of sweat. In the eyes of everyone, she looked guilty. Li Zhuangji, who had woken up, gritted his teeth and said, What? You don't dare to hand it over, do you? You have a guilty conscience. Yun Chuzhou, you beat up a fellow disciple for no reason, and you refuse to repent. Just wait to be punished in bitter cold cave. Li Zhuangzi's noisy voice made the killing intent in Yun Chuzhou's heart grow stronger. There were even faint purple lightning flashes in her lowered eyes. Fortunately, at this moment, the black bead in Yun Chuzhou's dantian trembled. Yun Chuzhou's dantian was in pain, and only then did she regain a trace of clarity. Chapter 38:12. The abnormal Yun Chuzhou. The purple lightning in Yun Chuzhou's eyes suddenly disappeared, but there was still a murderous intent in her heart. She could only rely on her will to suppress it. She knew that if she continued to delay, she might not be able to control herself and cause a big disaster. Therefore, she smiled bitterly and said, The sword pool has been controlled by the Li family for a long time. I, a small outer disciple, naturally can't contend with it. Forget it, I don't want to explain anymore. Manager Song, you can do as you like. Manager Song, what did he mean by do as you please? These words sounded as if he and Manager Li were in cahoots. He patted the desk and said with an unhappy expression, Yun Chuzhou, our discipline hall is concerned with evidence. Now that the witnesses and evidence are all here, they can prove that you beat Li Zhuangji. If you can't provide strong evidence, I can only enforce the law impartially. Yun Chuzhou said with a pale face, then well deal with it according to the sect rules. I have no other opinions. Once Yun Chuzhou said that not only Manager Song, even the onlookers were very surprised. This was completely inconsistent with this troublemaker's style of doing things. This guy would be unreasonable and unreasonable. Why did he confess so easily today? Although Manager Song was a little surprised, he thought that since Yun Chujio had already confessed, no one would be able to say anything, so he said, "Okay, since you have confessed, then according to the sect rules, beating a fellow disciple will be punished according to the severity of the circumstances. Li Zhuangzi's injuries are not too serious, so you'll be imprisoned in the bitter cold cave for a month. Come and read on our website Wuxia World site." Thanks. The reason why Manager Song said this was because although Li Zhuangzi's injuries looked quite miserable, Yun Chujio did not hurt his vital parts. He would be fine after 2 days of recuperation. Yun Chujio nodded. "I admit my punishment." Although Manager Song did not understand what Yun Chujio was up to today, he was afraid that she would cause any more trouble, so he immediately ordered someone to escort her to the bitter cold cave. Li Zhuangzi suddenly thought of the loan slip and quickly shouted, "Wait."
My loan slip.
Manager Song, ask Yun Chujio to return the loan slip to me. Without waiting for Manager Song to speak, Yun Chujio took out a piece of paper from her storage ring, waved it in front of everyone, and then tore it into pieces. The scraps of paper were blown away by the wind. Yun Chujio glanced at Li Zhuangzi and Manager Li indifferently. Her eyes were filled with a strong murderous intent, which scared Li Zhuangzi so much that he didn't dare to say a word. Even Manager Li felt a chill on his back. How could this wretched girl have such a strong desire to kill? When he looked again, Yun Chujio had already gone far away with the people from the discipline hall. Not long after Yun Chujio walked out, Zhuge Dong ran over with a worried look. He saw Yun Chujio's pale face, and her forehead was covered with fine beads of sweat. He asked worriedly, "Junior Sister Yun, are you not feeling well?" Yun Chujio shook her head.
"I'm fine.
I'm just angry. I didn't expect that evil man Li Zhuangzi to complain first. He actually slandered me for beating him up. He was clearly the one who fell to the ground." "Zhuge Dong, Junior Sister, what's going on? Don't you know what's going on?" The corner of Zhuge Dong's eyes twitched. He continued, "It's good that you're fine. The hall master asked me to bring you some food to keep you warm."
Take care.
Yun Chujio nodded and put away the things. Then, she left with the disciples of the discipline hall. Chapter 38. Bitter Cold Cave. After almost 2 hours, Yun Chujio finally arrived at Bitter Cold Cave. Bitter Cold Cave, as the name implied, was naturally a place with extremely harsh conditions and extremely cold. It was rather strange to say that this bitter cold cave was located not far from the main entrance of the earth fire. Even though it was constantly roasted by the earth fire, the inside of the bitter cold cave was still extremely cold. After the disciples guarding the bitter cold cave checked the document archives of the discipline hall, they locked Yun Chujio up in the second bitter cold cave. In fact, the bitter cold caves of different numbers were basically the same. It was just that they were built to isolate the people who were closed, so they built a stone wall in the middle to separate the bitter cold cave into several rooms. At this time, the surging killing intent in Yun Chujio's heart had weakened a lot. She felt that it was not bad to stay in the bitter cold cave for a month. At least, she wanted to see if this inexplicable killing intent was related to the haunted house. Yun Chujio sized up the second bitter cold cave. There was nothing inside, but the temperature was frighteningly low. Fortunately, Hei Xinjiu had the 10,000-year-old fire marrow in her hand, and she also had the cloak of the nine-tailed fox. She did not feel that it was too cold. Perhaps it was because it was too cold here. Yun Chujio felt that the killing intent in her body suddenly disappeared without a trace, as if everything before was an illusion. Yun Chujio remembered that every time there was an abnormality, it was because of the large kitchen knife. Hence, she took out the large kitchen knife, but this time, there was no abnormality at all. Yun Chujio was puzzled, so she let Dog 2 out. Dog 2, on the other hand, was resistant to the cold. It ran a few rounds in the bitter cold cave and said with its spiritual sense, "Little fairy, this bitter cold cave is simply tailor-made for you." Yun Chujio kicked it in annoyance. What did it mean by tailor-made for her? Was she born to be punished? After being kicked, not only was Dog 2 not angry, but even came up to her and said, "Little fairy, have you forgotten? The Great Void's soul-repairing formation needs to be carried out in a very cold place. Isn't this the right place? Come and read on our website Wuxia World site." Thanks, Yun Chujio's eyes lit up. That's right. Last time, because the heaven and earth energy around the bottomless ice abyss had been sucked dry, she had no choice but to stop the Great Void's soul-repairing formation. This nameless sword sect must have a lot of heaven and earth energy, which could be used to repair souls. However, the area of Bitter Cold Cave number 2 was a little small, so it was not enough to set up the Great Void's soul-repairing formation. She looked at the stone walls on the left and right sides. Then, this guy knocked on the left wall with a big kitchen knife. "Hey, is there anyone next door?" After knocking for a while, there was no movement on the left side. Yun Chujio picked up the big kitchen knife and knocked on the right wall again, but there was still no reaction. So, this guy started to hit the wall. This guy had already made a plan. At most, when he left, he would just build the wall again. He was not afraid of being exposed. This guy quickly knocked down the wall on the left, and then started to knock down the stone wall on the right. After a while, the stone wall on the right was also knocked down. Then, this guy was dumbfounded. Because in the bitter cold cave on the right, there was a middle-aged man sitting cross-legged with a stubble beard. He was looking at Yun Chujio, who was holding a large kitchen knife, in shock. Yun Chujio smiled awkwardly and politely. Damn it, was this a dead person? She had knocked and smashed him so hard that he did not make a sound. Now, he had come out to scare people. Well, that martial uncle am new here. Please take care of me, Yun Chujio said with a dry smile. The middle-aged man was dumbfounded. Was this person here to be punished or to demolish the bitter cold cave? Chapter 38:14. Uncle Master Zhang. Although the middle-aged man was silent, under Yun Chujio's shameless verbal attack, Yun Chujio finally understood why the middle-aged man did not respond when she knocked on the wall. It turned out that the stone used for the walls of the bitter cold cave was a soundproof stone. It was used to prevent the disciples imprisoned in the bitter cold cave from chatting. Of course, the person who designed it did not expect that a pervert like Yun Chujio would smash the walls, so they did not use the reinforcement formation on the wall. Uncle Master, my name is Yun Chujio. I am an outer disciple of the lower house. This time, I was locked up because I beat up the son of the sword pool steward. May I know your name? How did you get in? How long will you be locked up for? Yun Chujio naturally had her reasons for asking this question. This fellow could not wait for this person to leave as soon as possible so that she could set up the Great Void soul-repairing formation. My surname is Zhang. After the man said this, he did not say anything else. It was obvious that he did not want to say anything more. Yun Chujio rubbed her hands. She was the second bitter cold cave. If she wanted to set up the formation, she could only open up the third bitter cold cave, where the man was. If he did not leave, she would not be able to set up the formation at all. Therefore, she asked again with perseverance, Martial Uncle Zhang, then why were you locked up here? How long did you have to be locked up for? Martial Uncle Zhang didn't even look at her. He closed his eyes and continued to cultivate, as if he didn't hear Yun Chujio's question. Yun Chujio was so angry, but there was nothing she could do. She couldn't force him to talk with a big kitchen knife. This fellow rolled his eyes. If he couldn't use force, then he would use force. This fellow set up a bonfire on the ground and began to roast the meat. Come and read on our website Wuxia World site. Thanks. Uncle Master Zhang opened his eyes and glanced at Yun Chujio, who was roasting the meat. How could she still have the mood to roast the meat after being locked in the bitter cold cave? This little girl had a big heart. Soon, the aroma of the roasted meat spread. Yun Chujio said with a smile, Uncle Master Zhang, come and eat the roasted meat. Martial Uncle Zhang acted as if he didn't hear her. He didn't even lift his eyelids. But Face had been craving for it for a long time. He used his spiritual sense to say to Yun Chujio, "Little fairy, that's a fool. Ignore him. Let's eat quickly." Yun Chujio glared at Buttface and scolded him with her spiritual sense. "Eat, eat, eat, eat. You only know how to eat. You're timid and greedy. Who would believe that you're an ancient fierce beast, Cheong-chi? You dumbass." Buttface wagged his tail and said, "Little fairy, your scolding is so nice. If you scold me a few more times, I will feel uncomfortable if you don't scold me 8 times a day." Yun Chujio, however, this fellow was also hungry. He decided to start eating roasted meat with Buttface and ignored Uncle Master Zhang. When Buttface was half full, he said slyly, "Little fairy, do you have wine? I heard that big chunks of meat eat meat. Drinking wine in big gulps is the true hero. Let me try." Yun Chujio wished she could slap Buttface on the wall, eat a big piece of meat, and drink a big mouthful of wine. Did he think he was a bandit? However, she was moved. She took out a wine gourd and said to Uncle Master Zhang with a smile, "Uncle Master Zhang, I have some good wine here. Are you in the mood to come over and have a few drinks?" Although Uncle Master Zhang still didn't say anything, Yun Chujio noticed that his eyelids were trembling. Apparently, he was tempted. Yun Chujio pursed her lips in her heart. It turned out that he was a drunkard. Therefore, He Xinjiu opened the lid of the wine gourd and deliberately shook it. Immediately, a strong wine fragrance drifted out. Uncle Master Zhang's eyelids trembled even more. "Uncle Master Zhang, it's fate that we met in this bitter cold cave. Come and have a few cups to keep warm," Yun Chujio said again with a smile. Chapter 38, 15. The Past of Martial Uncle Zhang. Martial Uncle Zhang finally opened his eyes and sat beside the fire with a stiff face. Yun Chujio was secretly delighted. She had thought that it would be difficult to take the bait, but she did not expect it to be settled with alcohol. Martial Uncle Zhang did not eat much meat and did not speak. He only drank 1 cup after another. Yun Chujio was also obedient and did not ask anything. She poured the wine for Martial Uncle Zhang attentively. When Uncle Master Zhang's eyes were a little dazed, He Xinjiu began to pull back the net. "Uncle Master Zhang, I see that you have a dignified appearance and a strange skeleton. How did you enter this bitter cold cave? Were you framed?" Uncle Master Zhang drank the wine in his glass in 1 gulp and smiled bitterly. "Framed? I came in voluntarily." Yun Chujio was stunned. Voluntarily came in? Was she sick? Before Yun Chujio could continue asking, Uncle Master Zhang said, "Little girl, I know that you want to get information from me. Forget it, it's okay to tell you. You must think that I came to this bitter cold cave voluntarily because I'm sick, right?" Yun Chujio laughed dryly. "That's not the case. You must have a reason for doing so. You sure know how to talk." "That's right. I have a reason that I must come here. 1 look and I can tell that you're a new disciple who just joined the sect. No wonder you don't know me. I am the direct disciple of the sect master. I was once a famous figure in the Nameless Sword sect. All the disciples of the same generation, who doesn't have to respectfully address me as senior brother when they see me." Zhang Li. When he said this, Zhang Li's face revealed a hint of disappointment. Yun Chujio's heart moved. The direct disciple of Old Man Ouyang? If nothing unexpected had happened, this Zhang Li was originally groomed as the next sect master. Why did he voluntarily come to this bitter cold cave? Come and read on our website Wuxia World site. Thanks, she had never heard of such a person. Looking at how depressed he was, he must have experienced some kind of change. While Yun Chujio was deep in thought, Zhang Li motioned for her to pour the wine. Yun Chujio quickly filled her glass again. Zhang Li drank the wine in the glass in 1 gulp and then raised his head to laugh. Yun Chujio shrunk her neck. It was over. This uncle had started to act crazy from drinking. Zhang Li laughed for a long while, but his eyes were a little red. He let out a long sigh. "I was so proud before, but now I'm so down and out. Little girl, you must remember one thing. Don't be too proud at any time. Otherwise, you will suffer one day." Yun Chujio blinked her eyes and didn't say anything. Because what could this guy say? She had always been very arrogant. Zhongli didn't care whether Yun Chujio said anything or not. He finally said something that he didn't want to talk about. 5 years ago, Zhongli could be said to be very famous in the Nameless Sword sect. Whether it was his swordsmanship or his spiritual power cultivation, he was one of the best among his peers. However, he was also quite conceited. When he went out to the sect for a trial, because of his willfulness, he killed 5 of his fellow disciples. Only he and Wan Qingba escaped. Those 5 disciples were the personal disciples of the elders in the sect. Although Master Ouyang tried his best to protect Zhongli, Zhongli was still demoted to an outer disciple. Master Ouyang's original intention was to find a reason to turn Zhongli back into an inner disciple after a period of time, and then turn him back into a true disciple. Who would have thought that Zhongli had always been proud and arrogant? He blamed himself and had to bear the ridicule and complaints of the crowd. Soon, he began to drown his sorrows with alcohol. What was worse was that when he was practicing his sword after drinking, he actually went mad and almost killed Wan Qingba, who was trying to comfort him. This time, even Master Ouyang lost his patience with him and began to ignore him, leaving him to fend for himself. Chapter 38:16. Was she really possessed? The discipline hall was afraid that he would act up again and hurt others, so they locked him up in the bitter cold cave. Later, although his condition had improved, he did not want to go out and face the cold stares of others anymore. Therefore, every time he went out to buy some necessities after the deadline, he would continue to return to the bitter cold cave. I deserve all these punishments. I deserve it. If it weren't for me, they wouldn't have lost their lives. I've let them down. I once thought of using my life to pay for it, but I still haven't caught those murderers. I can't accept this. But ever since the incident, how could the sect let me leave the sect? Not to mention carrying out the mission. Only by suffering in this bitter and cold cave can I feel better. Alright, now that you know, do you think that I deserve to die for my sins? I also think that I deserve death. After Zhongli finished speaking, he snatched the wine gourd from Yun Chujio's hand and continued drinking. Yun Chujio narrowed her eyes. Wasn't Wan Qingba Elder Wan's son and Wan Pengcheng's uncle? There couldn't be another reason behind this, right? How could it be so coincidental that only Zhongli and Wan Qingba escaped? Furthermore, why would Zhongli go crazy from drinking? Why did he coincidentally want to kill Wan Qingba? Yun Chujio did not stop Zhongli from crying while drinking. Sometimes, suppressing one's emotions might not be a good thing. It would be better to vent it out. The next day, after Zhongli sobered up, he felt a little uncomfortable. However, Yun Chujio said with a smile, "Martial Uncle Zhang, we can be considered friends who have drunk before. Please don't be so distant from me in the future." Zhongli, this little girl most likely did not study hard. Was this how friends were used? Come and read on our website, Wuxia World site. Thanks, Martial Uncle Zhang. I've always heard people say that someone has gone mad or something like that. Can you tell me what it is like to go mad? I'm really curious. Yun Chujio had already seen Zhongli's most embarrassing side, so she did not feel any psychological burden. He smiled bitterly. Why are you so curious about this? Qi deviation can be divided into 2 types. One is when the qi and blood flow is reversed, the meridians are damaged, the light ones have their spiritual power damaged, and the heavy ones vomit blood and die. The other type is when the body does not have any substantial damage, but when the spiritual sense is in disorder and negative emotions such as resentment and murderous aura take the upper hand, the person will become abnormal, and even the person closest to him will be killed. I am the second type. Yun Chujio's face stiffened. Wasn't she very similar to the second type? However, she did not seem to be that serious. She could still rely on her will to control it. Could it be that she had really gone mad? Zhongli saw that Yun Chujio's expression was not very good and thought that she was scared. He smiled bitterly and said, "Why are you asking these questions? You must be scared now. You and I have known each other for a while. As an elder, I will give you a few words of advice. As an outer sect disciple, why do you have to have a conflict with Manager Lee's son? Isn't it asking for trouble? When the time is up, go out and cultivate properly. Don't stir up trouble anymore. Yun Chujiu had something on her mind, so she vaguely agreed. Zhongli saw that his mind was elsewhere, so he did not say much and continued to meditate and cultivate. Yun Chujiu frowned. She remembered that Zhongli had said before that after he had gone mad, he had improved after staying in the bitter cold cave for a period of time. After she entered the bitter cold cave, she also felt that the last trace of bloodlust had dissipated. Could it be that she had really gone mad? Was it really because of the haunted house? Chapter 38:17 The enemy of an enemy is a friend. Yun Chujiu rubbed her chin and wondered why the haunted house could cause one to go berserk. Logically speaking, the root of the berserk state was to magnify the negative emotions in one's heart, just like how the Guai Chao made her become a living dead. Then, how did the haunted house do it? Moreover, ever since she was tortured by the Guai Chao, she could be considered immune to all poisons. How could she still fall for it? Yun Chujiu had a lot on her mind, so she was not in the mood to think about the Great Void soul-mending formation. Besides, Zhongli was here, so she could not set up the formation. What she wanted to do the most now was to return to the haunted house and find out the root of the problem. Then she would completely solve the issue of killing intent. Otherwise, it would be a hidden danger sooner or later. However, how could she get out as soon as possible? Yun Chujiu blinked her eyes and finally, her gaze fell on Zhongli. As the successor of the next sect master, Zhongli was naturally envied by others. Moreover, the 5 who died were the direct disciples of the elders. This move could be said to kill many birds with one stone. It was definitely a conspiracy. Perhaps Elder Wan's hand was involved in this. The enemy of the enemy was a friend. Although Zhongli was now depressed and unable to achieve anything, he was once the direct disciple of Old Man Ouyang. If he used it well, he could also be a help. Thus, this fellow squeezed out a few crocodile tears and sighed. Martial Uncle Zhang, I understand your feelings very well. To be honest, I've had similar experiences with you. Zhongli was stunned.
What did you say?
You've had the same experience as me? That's right. I'm not from the Towering Sky continent, but from the Immortal Essence continent. Back then, I was also very proud of myself in the sect. It was just that I was envied by others, and then set up a vicious scheme for me. Come and read on our website Wuxiao World site. Thanks basically, it was similar to what you went through. When I went out on a mission, a disciple who was usually good to me kept encouraging me, intentionally or unintentionally making me make the wrong decision. Coincidentally, we were ambushed. In the end, only me and the disciple who encouraged me returned to the sect. At that time, I was just like you, Martial Uncle. I simply felt that living was suffering, and I wished I could die. Fortunately, my master helped me to find out the truth in the end. It turned out that all of this was done by the disciple who instigated me. Damn it, not only did I kill him later, I even killed his dog. Yun Chujiu gnashed her teeth and said. At first, Zhongli only listened with some curiosity. However, as he listened, he stood up. Even though his face was covered by a full beard, it could be seen that his expression was very ugly. Yun Chujiu pursed her lips in her heart. Wasn't he that stupid? After a long while, Zhongli stared at Yun Chujiu and said hoarsely, What did you mean just now? You want to tell me that all of this was designed by Wan Qingba? Yun Chujiu had an innocent look on her face. Martial Uncle Zhang, I'm only talking about my own experience. As for whether that Wan Qingba harmed you, you have to ask yourself. Zhongli did not say anything for a long time. Yun Chujiu stole a glance at his eyes and saw that there was suspicion, anger, and a hint of expectation in his eyes. Yun Chujiu completely understood Zhongli's thoughts. He wished that all of this was a conspiracy by Wan Qingba. This way, the guilt that tormented him at all times would turn into hatred, and he would be able to get rid of the situation where he was living a life worse than death. After almost 2 hours, Zhongli said to Yun Chujiu, Little girl, whether or not you have the intention to remind me, I will remember this favor. After I have investigated thoroughly, I will naturally show you something. Chapter 38:18. The eyes of the devil Yun Chuzhou bared her little white teeth. Martial Uncle Zhang, let's not wait for the next day to repay me. You should repay me now. Zhongli, after a moment of silence, Zhongli said, How do you want me to repay you? Yun Chuzhou said with a smile, Martial Uncle Zhang, aren't you free to go out at any time? You carried my rabbit to Li Zhuangzi's courtyard for 2 nights in a row. As Yun Chuzhou spoke, she summoned the Meng Yanshou. In order not to be afraid of being exposed, this fellow had finally replaced the shell of the Meng Yanshou with the flowing light windblade rabbit that was commonly seen in the sky-high continent. However, this flowing light windblade rabbit was also the lowest level spirit beast in the sky-high continent, especially in the northern continent. Basically, it was used to stew meat. Therefore, when Zhongli heard Yun Chuzhou's words and saw the Meng Yanshou on the ground, he was completely dumbfounded. What kind of request was this? Although Li Zhuangzi was an inner sect disciple, based on Zhang Li's cultivation level, it was not difficult for him to walk around his courtyard at night. However, what was the little girl's motive for doing this? Zhang Li saw that Yun Chuzhou's expression was very serious. He thought to himself, no matter what her motive was, helping her once would be considered returning a favor. It was also possible. Therefore, Zhang Li agreed. That afternoon, Zhang Li left Bitter Cold Cave, while He Xinjiu began to bitterly build the wall. This fellow was building the wall while muttering, There's a famous saying that says that it's easier to break the wall than to build it. It's true. Buttface rolled his eyes and asked in puzzlement, Little fairy, which famous person said this? Me. Come and read on our website Wuxia World site. Thanks Buttface, alright you win. That night, Zhang Li carried the nightmare beast and walked around Li Zhuangzi's courtyard. He took out the so-called special die that Yun Chuzhou gave him and wrote a big kill word on the ground. Of course, when he wrote it, he deliberately wrote it with his left hand to avoid being recognized by others. After everything was done, Zhang Li quietly left Li Zhuangzi's courtyard. Not long after he walked out, he heard a terrified scream coming from inside the house. He frowned and quickly left. Inside the house, Li Zhuangzi was so scared that he broke out in cold sweat. He had an extremely terrifying nightmare. He actually dreamed of a devil covered in blood warning him to quickly release Yun Chuzhou. Moreover, he was not allowed to tell anyone about this matter, or else a great disaster would befall him. Li Zhuangzi wiped the cold sweat off his head. He comforted himself that he must have been daydreaming. It was just a dream, nothing much. However, the next morning, when he saw the situation in the courtyard, he was so frightened that he immediately sat on the ground. He saw a large kill word on the ground. This was not much. The main thing was that the kill word was filled with the corpses of spirit ants. Under the contrast of the red kill word, it was particularly terrifying. Li Zhuangzi finally stood up. Could it be that someone had set him up? However, even if the word kill was man-made, how could he explain the nightmare? No one had the ability to make him have nightmares, right? Could the warning in the dream be true? If he did not release Yun Chuzhou, would there really be a big disaster? Li Zhuangzi recalled hearing that when Yun Chuzhou was wronged last time, Shi Heiqi of the Discipline Hall had blood oozing out of his ears. Could it be that Yun Chuzhou was really that evil? The more Li Zhuangzi thought about it, the more scared he became. Somehow, he remembered the murderous look in Yun Chuzhou's eyes before she left. It was actually the same look as the demon in his dream. Chapter 38:19 Ghost Hunting. Li Zhuangzi took a while to recover before removing the spirit ant corpses and the red marks on the ground. He consoled himself that it must be a coincidence. However, in the middle of the night the next day, despite his efforts to widen his eyes, he fell asleep in the end and dreamed of the demon again. This time, the demon ate manager Li right in front of him. Li Zhuangzi was so scared that he cried out repeatedly. He stayed in the house shivering until dawn. When he opened the door and saw a large amount of blood in the yard, he fainted from fright. After Li Zhuangji woke up, he ran to the discipline hall without caring about anything else. Manager Song, I withdraw the charges against Yun Chuzhou. You let her out. Manager Song looked at the pale Li Zhuangji with a dumbfounded face. Is this guy sick? Previously, he wanted to severely punish Yun Chuzhou. Why did he come here to release Yun Chuzhou now? Li Zhuangji saw that Manager Song didn't say anything and repeated his request. He almost knelt down before Manager Song. Manager Song couldn't help but click his tongue in wonder. What on earth was going on? However, since the plaintiff withdrew the complaint, and it was only a grudge between the two of them, he naturally wouldn't stop it. He immediately ordered someone to release Yun Chuzhou from the bitter cold cave. After Yun Chuzhou came out of the bitter cold cave, she strolled towards her own courtyard. On the way, she met Zhang Li. Zhang Li returned the nightmare beast to Yun Chuzhou and left without saying anything. It was obvious that he did not intend to have a deep relationship with Yun Chuzhou. However, Yun Chuzhou did not seem to care about Meng Yanshou. Yun Chuzhou shrugged her shoulders indifferently. She had the bait in her hand, so she was not afraid that this Zhang Li would not take the bait in the future. It was better to let him hit the wall first. Come and read on our website Wuxiao World site. Thanks. When Yun Chuzhou returned to the haunted house, Meng Yanshou kept asking for credit. Yun Chuzhou threw him a few scripts and he stopped immediately. Yun Chuzhou in the murder house inside and outside a check, but did not find any unusual places. Yun Chuzhou finally made up her mind not to sleep at night. She wanted to see what the hell was playing at. Therefore, at night, Yun Chuzhou sat on the stone bench in the yard with her eyes wide open. Buttface was trembling as he held Yun Chuzhou's leg with his claws and refused to let go. Little fairy, I'm so scared. I'm scared to death. Put the baby into the spirit beast bag. The cat cub is brave. Let it out. Yun Chuzhou glanced at Buttface. She felt that his acting was more exaggerated. She did not believe that Buttface was really afraid of ghosts. However, it was fine to let the kitten out. It was a good opportunity to try it out. Therefore, Yun Chuzhou let the kitten out. The kitten hated Buttface to death. This damn Cheongqi. It was fine if she suffered, but she had to drag it down with her. It was really a bad thing. Buttface saw a flash of hatred in the kitten's eyes. It wagged its tail proudly. Although this kitten was hateful, its abilities were not bad. It was safer with it around. Since it was the beginning of the moon in the sky was only a thin crescent. The courtyard was very dark, adding to the terrifying atmosphere. Dog 2 said with a trembling voice, Little fairy, don't you have the luminous pearl? Quick, take it out. The kitten said snappily, Are you stupid? If it were as bright as day, would that thing appear? Both of them were arguing with their spiritual senses, so it was very quiet in the courtyard. Just then, there was a knock on the courtyard door. Chapter 38, 20 Playing Tricks. Knock, knock, knock. The knocking on the door was exceptionally clear in the silent night. Buttface was so scared that he was trembling. Ghost, the ghost is here. It scared me to death. The kitten looked at Buttface with disdain. Useless thing. What's there to be afraid of? What can it do to us? Although the kitten said so, it was still uncertain. After all, it had seen with its own eyes that Yun Chuzhou had really gone mad. It was impossible for it to say that this house was not strange at all. It secretly raised its head to look at Yun Chuzhou. It thought that Yun Chuzhou must be terrified too. It did not expect to see the corner of Yun Chuzhou's mouth slightly curled up. Not only was she not afraid at all, but she was eager to give it a try. Although the kitten was unwilling to admit it, it could not help but admire Yun Chuzhou's courage. This stupid girl was too bold. She was not afraid at all. Just as the kitten was thinking, it felt a gust of cold wind beside it. It realized that Yun Chuzhou had already jumped to the door and suddenly opened the door. Although Buttface was shivering and holding onto the kitten's tail, its eyes were wide open. It curiously looked at the door. However, at the next moment, Buttface suddenly rushed to the door and bit at the person who was imprisoned by Yun Chujio. Damn it! I told you to pretend to be a ghost to scare the baby. I'll bite you to death. Damn it, it's because you pretended to be a ghost that the baby's reputation will be ruined. I'll bite you to death. Come and read on our website Wuxia World site. Thanks. The kitten narrowed his eyes. Someone was pretending to be a ghost to scare people? However, what was going on with the little girl? Yun Chuju looked coldly at the ghost who had been bitten by dog too and was crying like a ghost. She was wearing a white robe and a red cloth that looked like a tongue in her mouth. Her face was also pale because of some unknown dye. If an ordinary person saw this horrifying look at night, they would probably be scared to death. Unfortunately, this was all left over from her play. She was not creative. Junior sister Yun, spare me. Spare me. I was forced to do this. I had no choice. The ghost's face was washed by tears and sweat. In addition to his voice, Yun Chujio recognized his identity. It was the handyman Jiaorani from the Sword Hall who encouraged her to go to the second floor to accept the mission. Yun Chujio raised her eyebrows. Forced by someone? Then tell me who forced you?
And how?
Jiaorani said with snot and tears in his eyes. Junior sister Yun, yes, it was senior brother Luo and senior brother Yu who asked me to do it. If I didn't do it, he would kick me out of the Sword Hall. You also know that the servants in the Sword Hall are treated better than those in other places. I have no choice. Senior brother Luo and senior brother Yu. Luo Hai and Yubo. Yes, it's the two of them. Because they are on good terms with Elder Wan's grandson Wan Pengcheng, they are the best among the outer disciples of the lower house, not to mention a little servant like me. I really have no choice. A trace of coldness flashed in Yun Chujia's eyes. It was not the first time that these two scumbags had troubled her. They were really courting death. Jiaorani saw the coldness in Yun Chujia's eyes and shivered in fear. He had come once in the middle of the night. After knocking on the door a few times, he did not expect to provoke He Xinjia's anger when she woke up. He was dumbfounded by He Xinjia's scolding. He could only leave with his tail between his legs. This time, when Yun Chujio just came out of the bitter cold cave, Luo Hai and Yubo found him and asked him to continue playing the ghost. In fact, he was not willing to come either. Everyone said that this courtyard was evil. What if he went mad? Chapter 38. 21 Ghosts fear the wicked. Even though Yun Chujia's haunted house was far away from the residences of the other outer sect disciples, Jiaorani's wailing just now still attracted the attention of some outer sect disciples. However, those people had nothing to do with it, and they were afraid of the evil ways of the haunted house, so they naturally would not come over to check. Seeing that Yun Chujio did not speak for a long time, Jiaorani could not figure out what Yun Chujio meant. Just as he was about to beg for mercy again, Yun Chujio kicked him into the courtyard. Junior sister Yunyu, what do you want to do? Jiaorani asked in fear. It's very simple. From now on, you will stay in my courtyard every night. Anyway, I have a lot of empty rooms here. Don't you like to pretend to be a ghost? There are a lot of ghosts in my courtyard. You can cultivate a good relationship with them, Yun Chujio said faintly. Jiaorani was instantly dumbfounded when he heard that. It was fine if he pretended to be a ghost outside the door, but this courtyard was a famous haunted house. If he lived here every night, wouldn't he be possessed by the devil? Just as he was about to refuse, Yun Chujio stuffed a pill into his mouth and said coldly, Jiaorani, the pill I gave you is 1,000 cuts and 10,000 burps. If you don't take the antidote within a month, you will try what 1,000 cuts and 10,000 burps is. Don't worry, this is my exclusive secret medicine. No one can find out that you are poisoned. If you don't believe me, you can try it. Jiaorani wanted to say more, but Yun Chujio stuffed his mouth with a rag and threw it into the yard. Then, she brought Buttface and the kitten into the house. Come and read on our website Wuxia World site. Thanks. Jiaorani's body was confined, and his mouth was stuffed with a rag. He could only lie in the yard bitterly. This was nothing. The main thing was that when he remembered that this was a haunted house, he felt a chill run down his spine. Dog 2 eagerly went to Yun Chujia's bedside. Little fairy, weren't you scared just now? Or did you know that someone was playing tricks from the beginning? The kitten also curiously pricked up its ears to listen. It had to say that Yun Chujia's performance just now had exceeded its expectations. This darn girl was really bold. Yun Chujio glanced at Dog 2 and said faintly, whether it's a ghost or a person, they are all the same in the end. What's there to be afraid of? Besides, that night, I roared, and the knocking stopped. It was obvious that I scared them away. How could it be a ghost? Buttface was stunned for a long time. After flattering him, he asked curiously, Little fairy, if you didn't guess that it was a person pretending to be a ghost, are you afraid? Yun Chujio raised her eyebrows slightly. What's there to be afraid of? No matter how scary a ghost is, there are still people who are scary. Stop talking nonsense, and go to sleep. Buttface repeated a few words that Yun Chujio said, then a bright light shone from his dog eyes. Little fairy, I finally understand. Isn't there a saying? Ghosts are afraid of evildoers. Evildoers like you are naturally not afraid of ghosts. Yun Chujio couldn't be bothered with this idiot. The so-called fear of ghosts was nothing more than the fear of unknown dangers. Just like when she was in the Yun family's ancestral tomb, she was not afraid of the so-called ghosts, but she was afraid that someone was playing tricks. The reason why she let Jiarani stay here every night from now on was to verify whether the people who lived here would suffer from chi deviation. Yun Chujio's restriction on Jiarani's spiritual power had a time limit. Therefore, the next morning, Jiarani scrambled out of the haunted house. He did not return to the sword hall. Instead, he ran to the Nameless Sword Sex Medical Center. Chapter 38, 22 Sect, Mission Jiarani had spent a lot of sect contribution points to get several disciples in the medical center to treat him. However, everyone said that other than some external injuries, his body was normal and there was nothing wrong with it. Jiarani was about to cry. I'm really poisoned. How can there be nothing wrong? The disciples of the medical center looked at him as if he was a fool, and then no one paid him any attention. Jiarani had no choice but to leave the medical center with a sad face. He had just arrived at the sword hall when he was stopped by Luo Hai. I heard that you were beaten up by that stinky girl last night. You're a piece of trash. Can't you even pretend to be a ghost? Jiarani explained a few things in a submissive manner, but he subconsciously hid the poison and the fact that Yun Chujio asked him to stay there at night. Luo Hai kicked him and scolded him for being useless. Then he turned around and left. Jiarani's heart was filled with resentment. This Luo Hai and that Yubo had always bullied him. The last time he instigated Yun Chujio to accept the mission on the second floor of the Bounty Hall, he originally wanted to look for Martial Uncle Wan to take credit, but he let this Luo Hai and Yubo replace him. Later on, Yun Chujio came back alive. He heard that Martial Uncle Wan had taught them a lesson. They deserved it. In the evening, Jiarani was very restless in his own residence. Should he go to the haunted house or not? At this moment, he felt a faint pain in his dantian. His face could not help but turn pale. It seemed that what Yun Chujio said was true. The poison she had given him was really an exclusive secret medicine. In the end, Jiarani still took his time to arrive at the haunted house. After all, compared to losing his life, chi deviation was better. Moreover, it might not be true chi deviation. When Buttface saw Jiarani coming over, his dog eyes couldn't help but light up. He had finally found a fun toy. Come and read on our website Wuxia World site. Thanks Jiarani was really unlucky. He had been chased by Buttface in the yard for half a night. It was simply a life worse than death. For a few nights in a row, Jiarani stayed in Yun Chujio's yard. Other than being tortured by Buttface, there was nothing unusual. Yun Chujio deliberately let him compete with her in sword fights, but she did not find anything unusual. She also did not feel the sudden killing intent. What was going on? If an ordinary person had such worries, they would probably not be able to eat or sleep well. However, He Xinjiu had always been ambitious. After pondering for a few days and seeing that there was no progress, she threw it to the back of her mind. On this day, He Xinjiu was cultivating in her room. Her identity jade tablet started to tremble. After she used her spiritual sense to probe, she found that it was a message from the Bounty Hall, asking all the outer sect disciples to go to the Bounty Hall to receive sect missions. Yun Chujiu could not help but twitch her lips. The Nameless Sword sect was really smart. Although the outer and inner sect disciples could receive the sect's resources on time, there was one thing that was really annoying, which was that they had to do the sect's mission every once in a while, and they could not refuse it. If they completed it, there would be a corresponding reward. If they failed, they would be punished, and in severe cases, they would be demoted to odd-job jobs. Therefore, all the sect disciples did their best when carrying out the sect's mission. This was also why many disciples were willing to become disciples of the Sword Forging Hall. This was because the mission of the Sword Forging Hall was more than half of that of an ordinary outer sect disciple, so it was naturally less risky. Yun Chujiu grumbled in her heart as she slowly walked towards the Bounty Hall. There were so many outer sect disciples anyway, so they could not complete the mission in such a short time. It did not matter whether it was earlier or later. Chapter 38-23. People who went on missions together. When Yun Chujiu strolled to the Bounty Hall, most of the outer disciples had already been assigned tasks. These tasks were assigned by the manager of the Bounty Hall in advance. They were only called over to collect the mission files so that they could understand the specific situation of the mission. Yun Chujiu opened her own mission file and looked at it. The corners of her mouth could not help but curl up. It was interesting. It seemed that some people were really courting death. There were 2 old acquaintances in the list of disciples on the mission file. They were Luo Hai and Yubo. Yun Chujiu didn't believe that this was a coincidence. Someone must have deliberately arranged it. Otherwise, how could a newbie like her be paired with Luo Hai and the others? This was obviously abnormal. It seemed that Luo Hai and Yubo planned to kill her when they were doing the mission. After all, once they were out of the sect, it would be much more convenient to make a move. A trace of viciousness flashed across Yun Chujiu's eyes. Want to kill her? It was a good opportunity to kill these 2 eyesores so that they wouldn't cause trouble for her in the future. Yun Chujiu looked at the names of the disciples in the other groups, but she didn't have any impression of them. She didn't know if they were Luo Hai's people. Yun Chujiu glanced at the contents of the mission again and went to the Luoyan mountain to investigate the reason for the sudden decline in the production of refined iron ore. The Nameless Sword sect had a large number of forging swords, so they had a huge demand for refined iron ore. As a result, the Nameless Sword sect had many mines under their name. The iron ore in the Fallen Goose Mountain could only be considered medium-sized among these mines. There had been no problems all along, but the quantity of refined iron ore sent over recently had suddenly decreased. Manor Master Sima, who was in charge of the Fallen Goose Mountain, explained that there had been a fault in the mine with a small amount of refined iron ore. They could only continue mining after the fault had been fully exploited, which was why the production had suddenly decreased. Come and read on our website Wuxia World site. Thanks. Refined iron ore was extremely important to the Nameless Sword sect. Even though they did not have any doubts about it, they still decided to send their disciples to check it out. Yun Chujiu did not take this mission to heart. She felt that there was nothing to be done about it. The reason why Luo Hai and Yubo chose this mission was because they wanted to kill her. Naturally, they would not accept a sect mission that was too difficult. As the departure time was the next morning, after Yun Chujiu left the Bounty Hall, she went straight to Sword Forging Hall number 9. When Hall Master Zhuge saw Yun Chujiu coming over, although he still had a straight face, it was not difficult to see that he was still very happy to see Yun Chujiu coming over. Yun Chujiu babbled about the matter of going out to do a sect mission. Zhuge Dong said worriedly, "Junior sister Yun, Luo Hai and Yubo are on good terms with Wan Pingcheng. I'm afraid it will be disadvantageous for you." Yun Chujiu laughed lightly. "Don't worry. Those 2 idiots are not my match." Hall Master Zhuge glared at her unhappily. Their spiritual powers are much higher than yours. Moreover, they are working together. Don't let your guard down. Yun Chujo blinked her eyes and only smiled without saying a word. Hall Master Zhuge knew that the little girl in front of him had an idea, so he did not say anything more. Instead, Zhuge Dong reminded her again, "Junior Sister Yun, that Mu Jiang has a good character. You can get closer to him and be considered a helper. It is said that Xiao Hui is very tactful. He is probably a fence-sitter. You have to be on your guard. Perhaps he has already been bribed by Luo, Hai, and Yubo. As for the other three, I don't have much contact with them and I haven't heard any rumors, so you can observe them again." Chapter 38-24. Mu Jiang. Yun Chuju nodded obediently and agreed. After chatting for a while, she left the number 9 sword forging hall. As soon as Yun Chujo arrived at her courtyard, Jarani rushed over. "Junior Sister Yun, I heard that you're going on a sect mission with Luo Hai and the others? You have to be careful. I saw Uncle Master One talking to them for quite a while yesterday, and I vaguely heard your name a few times." Yun Chujo naturally knew the purpose of Jia Renai's words. She was afraid that if she died outside, the poison in his body would not be able to be cured. Yun Chujo took out a pill from her storage ring and handed it to Jarani. "Eat this pill. The poison won't take effect for at least 3 months." Jarani originally wanted to put away the pill and let the people of the medical center take a look. However, under Yun Chujia's cold gaze, he had no choice but to sadly swallow the pill. "While I'm away, help me keep an eye out for news regarding the number 9 forging sword hall and Zhongli. If you do well, I'll detoxify you when I come back." Although Jarani was puzzled as to why Yun Chujo would pay attention to the news about Zhongli, he still readily agreed. The next day, Yun Chujo arrived outside the Nameless Sword Sect's mountain gate according to the agreed time. At this time, there were already many outer sect disciples gathered outside the gate. After the members of the group had gathered, they immediately flew their flying spirit tools and left. Yun Chujo was looking around when she heard a displeased voice. "Yun Chujo, why aren't you on time at all? We agreed to meet here at midnight. Why are you only here now?" Yun Chujo followed the voice and saw that it was Luo Hai who spoke. Yun Chujia's heart skipped a beat. Yesterday, the manager of the bounty hall had informed her that the time was 25 minutes past midnight. It seemed like he did it on purpose. "Come and read on our website Wuxiao World site." Thanks. She walked up to Luo Hai and did not explain further. It was better to not talk about things that could be done. Luo Hai saw that Yun Chujo looked like a dead pig that was not afraid of boiling water. His expression became even more contemptuous. "If it wasn't for the fact that your spiritual power is too low and I'm afraid that you won't be able to complete the sect's mission, the higher-ups wouldn't have assigned you to our group. I didn't expect you to not be punctual. You're really a burden." Yun Chujo glanced at him. "Senior brother Luo, if you continue to give a long speech, you'll waste even more time." Luo Hai choked and snorted coldly. He did not introduce the members of the group to Yun Chujo. He directly summoned his flying spiritual weapon and waited for everyone to go up before leaving the Nameless Sword Sect. As Yun Chujia's unpunctuality had delayed everyone's journey, the others in the group treated her very coldly. However, one of the loyal-looking disciples nodded slightly at Yun Chujo. Yun Chujo was slightly stunned. It was actually him? When Yun Chujo came to the Nameless Sword Sect and prepared to risk her life to ascend to heaven, there was once a loyal-looking disciple who tried to dissuade her. It was this disciple in front of her. Yun Chujo had a good impression of this disciple. She smiled and said, "May I know how to address this senior brother?" "Junior Sister Yun in Mu Jiang. We met once when you entered the sect," Mu Jiang said with a simple and honest smile. So he was Mu Jiang? Senior brother Dong was right. Mu Jiang was obviously a good person. "Senior brother Mu, can you help me introduce the other senior brothers?" Yun Chujo was best at following the flow. Seeing that Mu Jiang was easy to talk to, she said with a smile. Mu Jiang nodded and helped Yun Chujo introduce the remaining 4 people, Zhao Hui, Tao Zhong Wudali, and Qian Chao. When Mu Jiang introduced them, other than Zhao Hui who smiled and nodded, the other three male disciples all looked like they did not care about Yun Chuzhou. Yun Chuzhou did not mind it. If she had to live off others' expressions, she would have died 1,000 times already. Along the way, Luo Hai and Yu Bo had repeatedly slandered Yun Chuzhou, intentionally or unintentionally. It was nothing more than words like not being punctual and having low spiritual power that would drag everyone down. This made Tao Zhong and the others even more dissatisfied with Yun Chuzhou. Tao Zhong glanced at Yun Chuzhou with disgust, then he said, "Yun Chuzhou, no matter how much you torment us in the sect, it has nothing to do with us. But this sect mission concerns our vital interests. If it's because of you that we didn't complete the sect mission, then don't blame us for not being polite." Yun Chuzhou looked at him indifferently. "Don't worry, I'm a very lazy person. I won't cause trouble." Tao Zhong snorted. "That's for the best. Otherwise, don't blame us for ignoring you when you're in danger." Seeing that the atmosphere was a little awkward, Zhao Hui quickly changed the topic. Yun Chuzhou couldn't be bothered to argue with a bunch of idiots, so this matter was over. After a few days of flying and walking through a valley where flying was prohibited, the group finally arrived at the Fallen Goose Villa. Manor Master Sima of the Fallen Goose Mountain Villa warmly let Yun Chuzhou and the others into the villa, and his attitude was very respectful. Actually, this was understandable. The Fallen Goose Mountain Villa was a small force that relied on the Nameless Sword sect, so they naturally would lower their stance. As the small leader of the group, Luo Hai put on a good show. After some small talk, they finally got to the main topic. "Manor Master Sima, tell me in detail about the refined iron mine." Manor Master Sima's originally smiling face was instantly filled with worry. "My lords, to tell you the truth, I've been really worried to death recently. Originally, the Luo Yen Mountain iron mine under our management had always been smooth sailing. But recently, we were unlucky enough to mine into a fault. Although there are refined iron ores in it, the distribution is very scattered, and it's very hard. Not to mention the time and effort it takes. The output has decreased drastically. I don't even have the face to meet all of you." Luo Hai said casually, "Manor Master Sima, you don't have to blame yourself too much. This is something that cannot be helped. If the situation is true, I believe that the sect will not blame you." Manor Master Sima said some polite words with gratitude, and then said, "All of you have worked hard on the journey. Let's rest for the night first. Tomorrow, I will accompany all of you to the mine to check it out, okay?" Luo Hai nodded his head and agreed, without the slightest hesitation. He felt that the mission this time was too simple. After the mission was completed, he would create some accidents on the way back and kill that Yun Chuzhou. Everything would be fine. Manor Master Sima was very enthusiastic. Regardless of whether it was the food or the accommodation, they were all meticulously arranged. No one could find any fault with them. The mine was still tens of miles away from the Wild Goose Down Mountain village. Due to the ban on flying, everyone could only take the carriage of the Wild Goose Down Mountain village to head there. Yun Chuzhou sat in the carriage, nibbling on a fruit as she looked at the scenery on both sides of the road. Tao Zhong coldly snorted in disdain. Some people are really lucky. On their first mission, they can execute it together with senior brother Luo. They don't have to put in any effort. As long as they follow, they can earn contribution points. Wu Dali and Qian Chao also chimed in. Their words were full of ridicule for Yun Chuzhou's luck. Yun Chuzhou acted as if she had heard a dog barking and did not even look at the three of them. Tao Zhong talked for a long time, but did not see Yun Chuzhou reply. He could not help but become angry from embarrassment. "Yun Chuzhou, are you deaf or mute? Did you not hear what I said?" Chapter 38-26. I want to go to the toilet. Just as Yun Chuzhou was about to teach him how to speak in human language, her eyes that were looking at the scenery outside suddenly shrank, and she looked outside carefully. Tao Zhong was about to flare up when Mu Jiang said with a simple and honest smile, "Junior brother Tao, junior sister Yun is still young. She can't help but be a little curious when she sees the scenery here. She didn't mean to ignore you. Zhao Hui also said with a smile, Junior brother Tao, it's still more important for us to complete the sex mission. Let's not argue with junior sister Yun. Tao Zhong saw that Mu Jiang and Zhao Hui had come out to smooth things over and felt that he had earned enough face. He pursed his lips and said, Yun Chujiu, since you're not saying anything, then do you tacitly agree with what we said? You're a waste. You're just a burden. Tao Zhong saw that Yun Chujiu still did not say anything, and he looked even more pleased. He thought that she was afraid of him. Don't look at how she was showing off in the sect. Once she left the sect, she would be afraid. Mu Jiang shook his head. He really did not understand why Tao Zhong and the others were targeting Yun Chujiu. Although there were some rumors in the sect that junior sister Yun was always causing trouble after interacting with her for the past few days, this junior sister Yun was very obedient. It seemed that the rumors couldn't be completely believed. Right at this moment, Yun Chujiu shouted loudly, Stop the car, I want to go to the toilet. I can't hold it anymore. Mu Jiang, not to mention Mu Jiang, even Tao Zhong and the others who looked down on Yun Chujiu, were dumbfounded. Was it really all right for a girl to be so wild? After the coachman consulted Manor Master Sima, he parked the carriage by the side of the road. Yun Chujiu clutched her stomach and got out of the carriage. Then she went into the small forest by the side. Come and read on our website Wuxia World site. Thanks. Tao Zhong curled his lips in disdain and said to everyone, not only does this Yun Chujiu have low spiritual power, but her words and actions are also vulgar. She is simply a disgrace to our nameless sword sect. Wu Dali and Qian Chao also chimed in with a few sarcastic remarks. After a long while, Yun Chujiu did not return. Tao Zhong said even more disdainfully, Look, I already said that this Yun Chujiu is a hindrance. It has been so long since she went to the toilet. What's the use of such trash? Mu Jiang frowned. It had indeed been a long time. He quickly got off the carriage and wanted to check it out. However, he was a man, so he could not go in to look for her. He could only stand at the edge of the small forest and shout a few times. Fortunately, Yun Chujiu's response came from the forest very quickly. Mu Jiang was slightly relieved. As long as nothing happened, it was good. Not long after, Yun Chujiu came out with a smile. She held a few branches with red wild fruits in her hands and handed one to Mu Jiang. Senior brother Mu, these wild fruits are very sweet.
Take it and eat.
Mu Jiang was speechless. Why did the last toilet bring back these wild fruits? Luo Hai and Yu Bo sat in another carriage. The two of them looked at each other. This Yun Chujiu was really courting death. The more she acted like this, the worse Tao Zhong and the others' impression of her would be. When that time came, it would be easier for them to find an opportunity to attack. Moreover, after returning to the sect, Tao Zhong and the others would not say anything. As expected, after Yun Chujiu returned to the carriage, Tao Zhong and the others mocked her again. They almost pointed at Yun Chujiu's nose and scolded her. Zhao Hui watched from the side coldly. He was very puzzled. This Yun Chujiu even dared to beat up Elder Wan's grandson. Why would she swallow her anger this time? This was too unlike her style of doing things. Zhao Hui had a good relationship with the sect and was well informed. He naturally knew that during this mission, Luo Hai and Yu Bo would probably attack Yun Chujiu. However, he did not know whether to stand by and do nothing or help this little girl. He had to think about it again. Chapter 38-27 The smell of blood. Very soon, the carriage arrived at the Luo Yen mountain mine. Manor Master Sima accompanied Yun Chujiu and the others into the mine. As they walked, he explained the situation of the mine. After walking for a while, the group arrived at the place where they were mining. As expected, there were some faults. Seeing this, Luo Hai said to Manor Master Sima, It seems that what you said is the truth. We will report it to the sect truthfully. You don't have to worry too much. After these faults are fully mined, the output will naturally increase. Manor Master Sima thanked him profusely again and accompanied everyone out. Tao Zhong suddenly frowned. Manor Master Sima, why do I smell a bloody smell? Manor Master Sima looked at Tao Zhong in confusion and sniffed. No, what Lord Tao Zhong smells is the smell of refined iron ore, right? Tao Zhong sniffed again. That's not right. My sense of smell has always been more sensitive than ordinary people. This is not the smell of refined iron ore, it's clearly the smell of fresh blood. Tao Zhong sniffed a few more steps as he spoke. Then he pointed at a spot in the mine and said, the smell of blood seems to come from this place. The closer you get, the stronger the smell. Mu Jiang was honest. He quickly went over and said in surprise, it's true. I really didn't pay much attention just now. When we get closer, there is indeed a smell of blood. Luo Hai and Yu Bo also walked closer and smelled it. Their faces couldn't help but change slightly. There really was a bloody smell. Without waiting for Manor Master Sima to explain, Yun Chuzhou rushed to say, Aya, what bloody smell? This is the smell of refined iron ore. I smelled this smell in Sword Forging Hall number 9. The quality of refined iron ore is not pure. This is the smell. Come and read on our website Wuxia World site. Thanks, let's go. It's more important to return to the sect to report our mission. If we have the time, we might as well return to the sect to practice our sword skills. Manor Master Sima also said from the side, yes, Lord Yun is right. This is the smell of refined iron ore with impure quality. How can this fine mine have the smell of blood? Luo Hai nodded when he heard that. He believed what Manor Master Sima and Yun Chuzhou said. That's right. This was a mine. How could there be the smell of blood? Unexpectedly, Tao Zhong glared fiercely at Yun Chuzhou. What do you trash know? This is clearly the smell of blood. Luo Hai frowned. Junior brother Tao, it's true that you occasionally smell wrongly. Let's go. It's more important for us to hurry back to the sect. Unexpectedly, Tao Zhong snatched a miner's pickaxe and dug a few times. An even stronger smell of blood came from the mine. Tao Zhong was about to continue digging when Yun Chuzhou suddenly came forward and grabbed his arm. She threw the pickaxe to the side and said, Senior brother Tao, did you not sleep well yesterday? Why are you talking nonsense? Go, let's hurry back to the sect. Tao Zhong did not notice that Yun Chuzhou had hit his mute acupoint. He was so angry that his face turned red, but he could not say a word. Zhao Hu's eyes suddenly shrank. He quickly came over to hold Tao Zhong's other arm and said, That's right. This is clearly the smell of refined iron ore. Let's return to the sect to report our mission. Luo Hai and Yu Bo seemed to have thought of something. They laughed and said, Manor Master Sima, this junior brother of mine has been having a fever recently. His brain is not very good. We will take our leave and return to the sect now. Although Mu Jiang did not know what had happened, he followed behind everyone and prepared to leave the mine. Manor Master Sima's expression was as usual as he said with a smile, My lords, why don't we stay at the mountain villa for a night before leaving? Chapter 38-28 and so on. No, we still have to rush back to the sect to report our mission. If there's a chance in the future, well, come and bother Manor Master Sima again. Although Luo Hai's tone was still rather calm, his forehead was covered with fine beads of sweat. Seeing this, Yun Chuzhou cursed in her heart. Fuck, a bunch of trash. If it wasn't for the fact that she couldn't escape on her own, she wouldn't have cared about these idiots. The smile on Manor Master Sima's face was still the same as before. Since that's the case, I won't keep you any longer. I'll send you off. When Manor Master Sima said, I'll send you off, there was an indescribable strangeness in his tone that made people feel very uncomfortable. Luo Hai couldn't be bothered to think too much and nodded his head perfunctorily. At this moment, even the slowest Mu Jiang felt that something wasn't right. Only Tao Zhong was still struggling nonstop. Zhao Hui directly restrained his spiritual power and dragged him out. When everyone left the mine, Luo Hai and Yu Bo did not put on airs like when they came. They took the initiative to invite Mu Jiang and Zhao Hui to their carriage. Unexpectedly, Mu Jiang rejected with a silly smile. He had a hunch that something was going to happen, and Yun Chujia's spiritual power was the weakest. He felt that it was better to sit with Yun Chujio. Zhao Hui's eyes flashed, and he also rejected Luo Hai's invitation. Luo Hai and Yu Bo could not help but feel a little angry. In the end, they let Wu Dali and Qian Chao, whose spiritual power was slightly weaker, get into their carriage. Manor Master Sima had been watching from the side with a faint smile on his face, but the smile did not reach his eyes. After everyone got into the carriage, the convoy set off. Inside the carriage, Zhao Hui hesitated for a moment, but still took out a piece of paper and pen to write 2 words and handed it to Yun Chujio. "Come and read on our website Wuxia World site." Thanks. Yun Chujio saw the 2 words, "Is there a trap?" and thought to herself that this Zhao Hui was indeed much smarter than those people. Otherwise, he wouldn't have helped her subdue Tao Zhong in the first place. Yun Chujio didn't say anything and nodded at him. Zhao Hui took out a pen and paper to write, "What should we do?" And Yun Chujio picked up a pen to write a word, "Wait." Zhao Hui looked at the dog-like word, "Wait." His heart was like a beeping dog. This was equivalent to not saying anything, okay? He glared at Tao Zhong again, without leaving a trace. It was all because of this good-for-nothing, who could not accomplish anything. Yun Chujio had already made things clear, but he insisted on saying that there was a smell of blood. He was afraid that this matter could not be resolved. Tao Zhong more or less understood the intention of Yun Chujio and Zhao Hui. However, he felt that the 2 of them were making a fuss over nothing. Perhaps it was just a trivial matter. At this moment, he smelled a faint fragrance. However, before he could make any gesture, he already did not know anything. Yun Chujio looked at the 3 people who fainted in the car and was speechless. When she came here, she realized that something was wrong. Logically speaking, there should be some small-sized demon beasts on both sides of the road, but she didn't see any. Even if the demon beasts were afraid that humans wouldn't appear, there should be claw marks or feces marks on the ground, but there weren't any. This was too abnormal. She took the opportunity to go to the latrine and caught a spirit bee. The news she received was that about a month ago, all the demonic beasts ran towards the mine ahead, but none of them came back. Yun Chujio felt that there must be something fishy about this. Just as she was about to run back to report the news, she found that there were people from the Sunset Villa guarding the other end of the forest, so she had no choice but to break a few wild fruits. Chapter 38-29. Evil formation reappeared. Yun Chujio originally had a sliver of hope in her heart. After arriving at the mine, she should be fine after giving a few perfunctory words and leaving immediately. Who would have thought that that idiot Tao Zhong would make such a big fuss out of it? He was simply courting death. Bai Li and the others were not allowed to fly within a few hundred li of the Sunset Glow Villa. Furthermore, there was no way to use the talisman, so there was no way to send a message back to the sect quickly. How could they be a match for Manor Master Sima and the others just by relying on them? Yun Chujio gave the antidote to the sleeping powder to the 3 of them. After the 3 of them woke up, Tao Zhong was just about to speak when he was scared back by Yun Chujio's fierce gaze. At this moment, a sound came from outside the carriage. Yun Chujio gave the 3 of them a look. The 3 of them understood and restrained their auras. They closed their eyes and pretended to be unconscious. The curtain of the carriage was lifted and then put down. A voice came from outside. "Manor Master, they have all fainted. Why don't we kill them now?" "No. Turn around and bring them to the blood pool. The blood of cultivators will be more effective," Manor Master Sima said coldly. The carriage turned around and went back to the mine. In fact, it didn't go far, so a moment later, the carriage entered the mine again. During this time, Tao Zhong wanted to speak a few times. In order to prevent him from doing bad things, Yun Chujio directly cut him unconscious with a knife. Seeing this, Zhao Hui and Mu Jiang were extremely obedient. They closed their eyes and pretended to be dead. Yun Chujiu did not dare to peek, but she heard a clang in her ears. It must have opened the so-called entrance to the blood pool. Following that, someone dragged Yun Chujiu and the others out of the carriage like dead dogs. He Xinjiu endured it and did not say a word. She hated in her heart. Damn it, it's not too late for little Jiu to take revenge. You guys will suffer in a while. Come and read on our website Wuxia World site. Thanks. Yun Chujiu soon smelled a strong smell of blood. She opened her eyes slightly. Although she could not see the whole picture, she saw many people and demonic beasts fixed on the wall. The blood in her body flowed to a certain place. Although Yun Chujiu could only see a tiny bit of the scene, she had seen this situation once in the Longping Mountain of the Qingxian continent. She knew that this was the evil formation used by the godly demon palace to search for the Eye of Earth Profound. When she heard that all the demonic beasts had gone missing, she had already had such a guess in her heart. She did not expect that it was really so. Her heart was a little heavy. It seemed that the divine devil hall had already infiltrated all the continents. However, these people did not seem to know her. Otherwise, based on the hatred the divine devil hall had for her, they would have already killed her on the horse carriage. Perhaps they only knew her name, but did not know her appearance. That was why they were like this. Just as Yun Chujiu was slightly distracted, she was ruthlessly thrown onto the ground. Someone shouted, "I've sent you a few more fresh ones. Moreover, they are disciples of the nameless sword sect." Very good. Their spiritual power is of a high level, and the spiritual energy in their blood is even denser. Fix them to the wall. Just as Zhuang Ding bent down to pull Yun Chujiu suddenly attacked and killed the man with a kitchen knife. At the same time, Mu Jiang and Zhao Hui also moved. Mu Jiang's spiritual power was slightly higher, so he dealt with the two Zhuang Ding in front of him alone, while Zhao Hui splashed Tao Zhong, Luo Hai, and the others awake with cold water. The Zhuangding did not expect that the unconscious man would suddenly attack them, so they let Yun Chujiu and the others succeed. However, they quickly reacted and surrounded Yun Chujiu and the others in the middle. Chapter 38:30 Competition. When Luo Hai and the others saw the scene in front of them, their legs couldn't help but go weak. This place seemed to be a huge stone room, and in the middle of it was a large array. In the middle of it was carved a huge spider lily, and around it were several array leaves. On top of it were drawn complicated ancient runes. Tens of thousands of demon beasts and humans were fixed to the ground and suspended in the air. They weren't dead, but the blood in their bodies was continuously pouring into the blood pool around the array board. This formation disc was not activated by spirit stones, but by the blood and life force of the demonic beasts. It was truly frightening. At this moment, they were surrounded by dozens of people. Those people were all wearing the clothes of the Zhuangding of the Sunset Manor. At this moment, they no longer had their previous humility, and their faces were filled with a ferocious killing intent. Just as Luo Hai and the others were still in shock. A small leader inside the Zhuangding sneered, "I didn't expect that you guys would not fall for it. This is good too. Let us experience the abilities of the so-called disciples of the big sects. Which one of you will compete with my men?" The small leader was sure that Yun Chujiu and the others would not be able to escape even if they had wings. Therefore, he was not worried that they would be able to escape, and he had the intention to play with them. Luo Hai's eyes flashed, and he snorted coldly, "With just you guys? Even our junior sister Yun, who has the weakest spiritual power, is much stronger than you guys. Junior sister Yun, you should teach them a lesson." Hearing Luo Hai's words, Yun Chujiu was angry and happy. A person who was stupid to a certain extent could not be saved. At this time, shouldn't they work together to escape? Even if they wanted to kill her, they should have done so after they escaped, right? Zhao Hui frowned. If he had known this would happen, he wouldn't have saved Luo Hai and Yu Bo. At this time, they were still fighting among themselves. It was simply too stupid. That small leader had an expression of wanting to watch a good show. Yo, then let's invite Lord Yun to spar with my subordinates. However, the Nameless Sword sect actually still has trash at the 9th level of the spirit transformation realm. It's really surprising. Come and read on our website Wuxia World site. Thanks, those Zhuangding also laughed along. They were like cats playing with mice. Mu Jiang frowned and blocked in front of Yun Chujio. Junior sister Yun, let me do it. Yun Chujio smiled and shook her head at him. No need, let me do it. Who asked me to be the most useless? However, Yun Chujio used Mu Jiang's cover to wink at Zhao Hui. Zhao Hui nodded his head subtly. Yun Chujio was glad that there was a smart person in the team, or else it would be even worse. Yun Chujio said with disdain, although I'm the weakest, I have no problem dealing with scum like you.
Why?
Give me some space, or else I won't be able to use it. The leader curled his lips. This stinky girl's spiritual power was not that great, but her tone was not small. He waved his hand, and the Zhuangding men stepped back to make way for him. A strong and stocky Zhuangding walked to the middle, with his lips curled. Little girl, I advise you to obediently surrender. Otherwise, you will suffer. Yun Chujio pointed at the humans and demonic beasts that were fixed to the wall and said, no matter how bitter it is, how can it be as bitter as theirs? You are really not human. You actually destroyed humanity for your own selfish reasons. Do you still have the face to live? The burly man was immediately angered from embarrassment. Damn girl. It was fine if you had obediently become a blood bowl, but you just had to be so sharp-tongued. When I catch you, I will teach you a lesson. Chapter 38:31 Are you Yun Chujio? Don't talk nonsense if you can fight. I'll let you experience the Nameless Sword sect's swordsmanship today. Yun Chujio said as she casually pulled out a treasure sword from her storage ring and stabbed it at the brawny man. The brawny man naturally didn't think much of Yun Chujio. She was just a little girl at the 9th level of the spirit transformation realm. How powerful could she be? He would be able to take her down in a few rounds. Therefore, the burly man was rather careless in dodging. Who would have thought that Yun Chujio's sword move was fake? The moment the burly man dodged, the direction of the sword suddenly changed and stabbed towards the front of the burly man. Although the burly man relied on the spiritual energy barrier to dodge this sword move, he was in a rather sorry state. Under the crowd's jeering, he became angry from embarrassment and fought with Yun Chujio. During the fight between Yun Chujio and the burly man, it was inevitable that they would shift the battlefield. Under Yun Chujio's intentional guidance, some people who were originally guarding the door moved to the side. Yun Chujio gave Zhao Hui a look. Zhao Hui immediately understood and led Mu Jiang and Tao Zhong to the exit. Their goal was not to escape, but to guard the exit. Zhao Hui was quick-witted. He completely understood Yun Chujio's intention. By guarding the exit, the people inside would not be able to go out and deliver the message. There were dozens of people inside. They had a chance of winning if they risked their lives, but if they let the people outside in, they would be dead for sure. Zhuangding's little leader was stunned at first. Then he sneered. He also understood Zhao Hu's intention, but he did not take it to heart. It was easy for them to kill these 8 people. Seeing that Zhao Hui and the other 2 had succeeded, Yun Chujio did not have the mood to waste time with the burly man anymore. Her sword suddenly sped up. Before the burly man could react, he was stabbed in the throat by a sword move that Yun Chujio created herself. She was dead. Taking advantage of the moment when everyone was stunned, Yun Chujio took out a few big sacks from her storage ring and threw them at the Zhuangding opposite her. Come and read on our website Wuxia World site. Thanks. In an instant, the air was filled with the comfortable smell of the chili dough. Yun Chujio raised her spiritual energy shield at the same time as she threw it, so she was not hindered at all. While releasing De Hua, she struck the Zhuangding with lightning. Zhao Hui and the other 2 were quite far away from Yun Chujio, so there was no hindrance. Luo Hai and the other 3 were miserable. Their faces were also covered by the chili dough, and their snot was choked until they cried. Luo Hai secretly hated in his heart. When they escaped, he would definitely think of a way to persuade the three of them to kill this Yun Chujio. However, he was quickly shocked by the dehua that Yun Chujio released. Even though this stone room was very spacious, Dehua's huge body almost reached the ceiling of the stone room. The Zhuangding was also shocked by Dehua and Yun Chujio's lightning. The small leader's eyes suddenly shrank. You are Yun Chujio's? Yun Chujio did not have the time to waste with him. She was conflicted as to whether to release the other dumb cuties and puppets. If she was alone, she would naturally choose to release them all. However, she was not familiar with Zhao Hui and the others, so it was very likely that there would be trouble in the future. She gritted her teeth and decided to take a look first. If it did not work, she could only release them. However, Yun Chujio's eyes soon lit up. There were many humans and demonic beasts fixed on the stone wall. Although the humans and demonic beasts didn't seem to have much vitality left, there were some high-level demonic beasts that looked alright. If they were rescued, then these people wouldn't be worth being afraid of. When Yun Chujio thought of this, she asked Hua to block the servants who attacked her while she summoned her kitchen knife to cut the chains that trapped the demonic beasts. She chose the demonic beasts that had stronger vitality and said while cutting, "If you want to save your lives, help us kill the people who captured you. Otherwise, none of us will survive." Although those demonic beasts were weak, their desire to survive had gained the upper hand, and they immediately joined the battle. With the help of these demonic beasts, Yun Chujio's side quickly gained the upper hand. Zhuangding's little leader's expression changed drastically. He wanted to lead his men to rush out of the door, but Zhao Hui and the other two, along with Dehua, guarded the exit firmly. There was no way for them to rush out. At this moment, Zhao Hui was extremely impressed with Yun Chujio. Fortunately, junior sister Yun had predicted everything. Otherwise, if these people ran out, they would really have no way of surviving. After a quarter of an hour, except for that little leader, all of Zhuangding were dead. Yun Chujio did not have the time to interrogate the little leader and directly performed a soul search. Yun Chujio could not help but frown. Although the little leader's knowledge was limited, he still knew the military arrangements of the mine like the back of his hand. There were at least 1,000 people in this mine. If they were to rush out now, they would simply be courting death. Moreover, Manor Master Sima, who was outside, hadn't been able to wait for these people to leave. He reckoned that he would soon become suspicious and send people in to investigate. When that time came, they would be exposed. Yun Chujio told everyone about the information she had received. Luo Hai said unhappily, "Yun Chujio, aren't you being too selfish? Why didn't you interrogate them publicly and insist on performing a soul search? Are you playing some tricks? Also, that person just called out your name. Are these people targeting you? Everyone, you've seen the current situation. It's as difficult as ascending to the heavens if we want to escape. Since those people are targeting Yun Chujio, why don't we use Yun Chujio as a condition in exchange? Then we can escape." Yubo also echoed from the side, "That's right. This Yun Chujio is famous for causing trouble. Perhaps she offended someone in the southern continent. We can definitely escape by using her as a condition. Moreover, those people might not kill her. When the time comes, we will return to the sect and bring people to save her. What do you think?" Yun Chujio's eyes deepened. She did not explain. Instead, she looked at the other 5 people and asked, "What do you think?" Wu Dali and Qian Chao looked at each other. Although the spiritual beast that Yun Chujio released seemed to be quite powerful, Yun Chujio's spiritual power was limited after all. It was safer for her to rely on Luo Hai and Yubo. Moreover, when that small leader found out about Yun Chujio's identity, he was very shocked. There must be something fishy going on. Thus, the two of them said dryly, "Junior sister Yun, we don't have any other way to escape now, so we'll have to trouble you." Pand Devero V. E1 C. M. Tao Zhong's hand clenched and then loosened. In the end, he gritted his teeth and said, "Although I don't like Yun Chuju, she is after all a disciple of our nameless sword sect. I don't agree to use her in exchange." Once Tao Zhong said that, not to mention Luo Hai and the others, even He Xinju looked at Tao Zhong in astonishment. She could not help but feel a little dumbfounded. Although this Tao Zhong was a little arrogant and a little stupid, at least he still had some conscience. Luo Hai snorted coldly. "Tao Zhong, if it weren't for your obstinacy this time, we wouldn't have fallen into danger. Since you don't agree, then you and Yun Chujiu can be hostages together." The reason why Luo Hai said this was to give Mu Jiang and Zhao Hui a deterrent, wanting them to stand on their side. When Tao Zhong heard Luo Hai's words, he looked at Luo Hai and Yu Bo, who had a look of agreement on their faces. His face was ashen. Luo Hai was getting impatient from waiting. He raised his voice. "Junior brother Zhao, junior brother Mu, what do you say?" Mu Jiang's face was slightly red, and his voice was stuttering due to his excitement. Senior brother Luo, if it wasn't for junior sister Yun, we would have died long ago." "You? How could you sacrifice junior sister Yun?" "I don't agree." Luo Hai's face immediately turned ugly. He looked at Zhao Hui again. As long as Zhao Hui stood on their side, they would still be able to secure victory. "Junior brother Zhao, as long as you agree with us, I can promise you that when we return to the sect, there will definitely be great benefits." Luo Hai promised. Unexpectedly, Zhao Hui straightforwardly said, "Senior brother Luo, I think Mu Jiang is right. If it wasn't for junior sister Yun, we would have died here long ago. Let's work together to think of a way to escape. Don't say anything about hostages or not hostages anymore." The expressions of Luo Hai, Yu Bo, and the other three immediately turned ugly. Luo Hai's expression changed a few times, and then he laughed dryly. "All right, I was just testing everyone just now." "Very good, everyone has remembered the sect's rules. Then, let's discuss the next step." Yu Bo also echoed from the side. Right, we can't kill each other at any time. We have to be united against the outside world. Junior sister Yun, you won't take it seriously, right?" Yun Chujiu curled her lips. "Of course I won't take it seriously. Everyone, take some pills first to replenish your strength. Then we can discuss the countermeasures. I'll take a look at the situation of those demonic beasts." Luo Hai and Yu Bo looked at each other. She didn't dare to have any objections. Sooner or later, she would find an opportunity to get rid of her. Thus, Luo Hai and the others gathered together to discuss the countermeasures. Yun Chujiu fed the demonic beasts some healing pills and put down some of the demonic beasts that were still alive. After a moment, a few huge demonic beasts suddenly attacked Luo Hai and the others. Mu Jiang was shocked and was about to go forward to help, but he was stopped by Zhao Hui. Then, he pointed his chin at Yun Chujiu, who was not far away. Only then did Mu Jiang realize that the demonic beasts were only attacking Luo Hai and the others, not the three of them. Could it be that the demonic beasts were instigated by junior sister Yun? How is this possible? Also, what did junior sister Yun want to do? Yes, was she going to kill Luo Hai and the others? How could Luo Hai and the others be a match for so many demonic beasts? They shouted at Zhao Hui and the others. "Help! Help! Quickly save us!" Zhao Hui's face was indifferent. He was the shrewdest. At this time, the outcome was already decided. Only a fool would step forward to help. As for Mu Jiang, he couldn't bear it. However, he was dragged by Zhao Hui and caught a glimpse of Yun Chujiu's cold gaze. He didn't know why his legs couldn't move. As for Tao Zhong, he hated Luo Hai and the others who wanted to sacrifice him to death. How could he help? While Luo Hai and the other three were in despair, they realized that these demonic beasts seemed to be under Yun Chujiu's command. Luo Hai shouted at Yun Chujiu, "Junior sister Yun, I was wrong. I was wrong. As long as you spare me, I will agree to any conditions." Yes, junior sister Yun, we were just joking just now. Please make these demonic beasts stop. Yu Bo shouted at the top of his voice. Wu Dali and Qian Chao were regretful. They cried out, Junior sister Yun, we were deceived by these two. We were wrong. Please spare us. Yun Chujio said indifferently, I saved you, but you want to repay kindness with enmity. Do I still want to keep you for the new year? Remember not to meet me in your next life, or else I will kill you. Yun Chujio looked at Zhao Hui and the other two coldly. Zhao Hui immediately said obediently, Junior sister Yun, Luo Hai and the other two were killed by Zhuangding of Luo Yan Villa. It's really sad. Tao Zhong also echoed from the side. That's right. Their deaths were well-deserved. Although Mu Jiang was a simple and honest person, he was not really stupid. He quickly said, yes, yes. They died well, died well. Yun Chujio, however, when Mu Jiang said this, the atmosphere eased up a little. Yun Chujio first let the demonic beasts destroy the evil formation. Then, she said to Zhao Hui and the others, I have no choice. If they don't die, and there's a change of heart in our team, it'll be even harder for us to escape. As you all have seen, although there are many people and demonic beasts trapped here, most of them have no chance of survival. The only ones who can help us to charge out are these 200+ demonic beasts. I reckon that Manor Master Sima will soon realize that something is amiss and bring his men to charge in. Do you have any good countermeasures? Mu Jiang scratched his head. Junior sister Yun, I'm stupid. I'll do whatever you say. Although Tao Zhong didn't say anything, it was clear that there was nothing he could do. Zhao Hui thought for a moment and said, Junior sister Yun, although there are more than 1,000 people in this mine, because they don't know what's happening here, they might not surround the exit at the same time. Why don't we catch them off guard and wait for the exit to open before we charge out? After we rush out, in order to avoid the Falling Goose Mountain Villa from setting up an ambush, we will run in the opposite direction. As long as we reach a place where we can use the talisman, we will be able to inform the sect. Yun Chujio felt that what Zhao Hui said made sense, so she nodded her head in agreement. At this moment, the demonic beasts had already destroyed the evil formation. Yun Chujio let the tough earth-type demonic beasts stand at the front, and then let the fire-type and wind-type demonic beasts stand around. As for the four of them, they stood shamelessly in the middle. Although the demon beasts felt very aggrieved, there was nothing they could do. After all, their lives were saved by these few humans, and they had to rely on them to escape. After a while, the exit was indeed opened from the outside. At the moment when the light from the outside shone in, several earth-type demon beasts rushed in. Soon after, Yun Chujio and the rest of the demon beasts also rushed out. Although Manor Master Sima and the rest felt that something was wrong, they definitely did not expect to encounter such a situation. By the time they reacted, Yun Chujio and the rest of the demonic beasts had already rushed out of the mine. Manor Master Sima was exasperated as he led his men to chase after them. However, he was not particularly worried because he had a way to make those demonic beasts return obediently. As long as he could control those demonic beasts, the remaining four people were nothing to be afraid of. Just as Yun Chujio and the rest were running wildly, those demonic beasts suddenly became restless. Some of them with low spiritual power even started to turn around and run back. Yun Chujio's heart tightened. She recalled what the spirit ant had said earlier. These demonic beasts had taken the initiative to run to the mine, which meant that Manor Master Sima definitely had some means to attract these demonic beasts. If these demonic beasts all ran back, then it would be very difficult for the four of them to resist the pursuers of the Sunset Manor. What should they do? Yun Chujio gritted her teeth. It seemed that they could only fight fire with fire. She said to Zhao Hui and the other two, "Let's go to the front." Zhao Hui and the other two did not understand what was going on, but they still followed Yun Chujio to the front. Then, they tragically discovered that the demonic beasts behind them seemed to have gone crazy, as if they were going to flatten them. What was wrong with these demonic beasts? Just a moment ago, they were going to turn around and run back. Why did they now look like they were going to fight to the death with them? Manor Master Sima had initially been feeling proud when he saw that a few demonic beasts had already turned around. However, he had not expected that those demonic beasts would suddenly go crazy and not return. What was going on? Manor Master Sima gritted his teeth and crushed a few more medicinal pills. An even more intense fragrance spread out. However, those demonic beasts acted as if they had not heard him and continued to run forward wildly. They had attracted some spirit ants, spirit bees, and other demonic insects to gather towards him. He had even been accidentally stung by a spirit bee. Manor Master Sima was so angry that he gritted his teeth. After using the cleaning spell, he led his men and chased after them. He thought to himself, "Fortunately, I have arranged a lot of men in front of me. I don't think those people can run away." Yun Chujiu tried to stop Guai Chao from releasing its scent. When she realized that the demonic beasts had gradually returned to normal, she could not help but heave a sigh of relief. She did not know what method the Divine Devil Hall had used to attract those demonic beasts. Fortunately, those methods were not enough in front of Go Weiba. Just as Yun Chujiu was feeling slightly relieved, hundreds of Zhuangding in the Fallen Goose Mountain Villa's uniform appeared in front of her. Moreover, there was only one exit leading to the outside world. Yun Chujiu did not need to think. The demonic beasts knew that they would only die if they fell into the hands of those people. Hence, they howled and pounced on Zhuangding. Yun Chujiu and the other three also joined in the battle. Yun Chujiu had already communicated with Mao Qiu just now. If it really did not work out, she could hide in the Great Void Mystic Realm, but what about Mu Jiang and the other two? And what about these demonic beasts? Although Yun Chujiu was not a good person, she still disdained to abandon her companions. Yun Chujiu suddenly remembered the sword technique she saw on the cliff. Why not give it a try? Yun Chujiu felt that the big kitchen knife was a little too short for her. She took out a sword from her storage ring and began to display the swordsmanship she had learned on the cliff. At first, she was still a little rusty, but she soon found the feeling. Zhuangding, who was around her, kept screaming. Zhao Hui and the others were dumbfounded. What kind of swordsmanship was this? It seemed to be similar to the nameless swordsmanship used by the sect leader and the elders, but it seemed to be even more profound than that. How did junior sister Yin learn it? Could it be that she also learned it by eating poisonous mushrooms? Chapter 38-36 Sword Light of Slaughter. This was the first time Yun Chujiu had used this half-set of sword technique against an enemy. She did not expect it to be so powerful, and she could not help but feel happy. Unfortunately, the joy quickly turned into sorrow. In the direction of the valley entrance, hundreds of people wearing black masks appeared. The leader was wearing a silver mask. Yun Chujiu was very familiar with this outfit. It was the people from the Divine Devil Hall. The moment the silver-masked man saw Yun Chujiu, he cried out in surprise, "Yun Chujiu? Kill them all. Leave no one alive." Manor Master Sima was originally a little worried, but when he saw those people, he immediately heaved a sigh of relief. The spiritual power of these people wearing black masks was much higher than that of the manor staff of the Fallen Goose Villa. Very quickly, more than half of the demonic beasts were killed and injured, and Zhao Hui and the others were also heavily injured. Yun Chujiu knew that even if she released the puppets and the silly cuties, it would be of no use. Just as she was thinking, Zhao Hui and the other two were captured by the people of the Divine Devil Hall. The silver-masked man said coldly, "Yun Chujiu, I know that you have some decent spiritual pets, but so what? Even if you let them out, they will still die. You are not our match at all. Just surrender." With this, those little things might still have a chance of surviving. Moreover, if you don't stop, these three people will only be buried with you. TSK, and these demonic beasts will all die because of you. Zhao Hui and the other two did not say anything to beg for mercy. They knew that it would be useless even if they did. They also did not say anything to Yun Chujio. Even if Yun Chujio did not care about their lives, they had nothing to say. Their lives were at stake. Who could care about who? When the silver-masked man saw that Yun Chujio did not say anything, he killed an injured man Tion's huge strength bear with a single slap. The huge body of the man Tion's huge strength bear fell to the ground. However, its eyes were not closed. There was a strong sense of unwillingness in its eyes. Yun Chujio remembered that when she fed the man Tion's huge strength bear with the medicinal pills, the man Tion's huge strength bear had even cupped its hands to her in a mischievous manner. Now, it had died in front of her. Come and read on our website Wuxia World site. Thanks. At this moment, another miserable scream rang out. The silver-masked man had killed another man Tian Windblade Tiger. The first thing that man Tian Windblade Tiger did when it was saved by Yun Chujio was not to heal its injuries. Instead, it was to comb its beautiful fur in a pretentious manner. However, at this moment, its beautiful fur was already stained with fresh blood. There was even a bloody hole that was continuously bleeding. Yun Chujio, I know that you might not care about these beasts. What about these three people? If you don't throw away the sword in your hand, I will chop off their limbs in front of you. And then, Yun Chujio could no longer hear the silver-masked man's words. Her heart was filled with murderous intent. It was a murderous intent that blotted out the sky and covered the earth. Yun Chujio did not use her will to control the surging murderous intent. She wanted to use this murderous intent to kill all these animals that were inferior to pigs and dogs. The black bead seemed to know Yun Chujio's intention, so it did not react. Just as the silver-masked man was talking smugly, a bright light flashed in front of his eyes. Then his eyes widened and he fell to the ground. Even until his death, he still did not know what was going on. Yun Chujio was clearly still some distance away from him. There were clearly many disciples of the divine devil hall around him. How could he have been stabbed in the throat? The scene that followed was a scene that Xiao Hui and the others would never forget for the rest of their lives. It was bloody and terrifying, but they saw hope for survival. They could no longer see Yun Chujio's figure clearly. They could only see a ball of sword light slaughtering nonstop. Wherever the sword light passed, no one survived. Blood flowed like a river, and corpses littered the ground. Chapter 38-37. She was the devil. Yun Chujio had maintained a trace of clarity at the beginning, but as she continued to kill, there was only one thought in her mind, and that was to kill. Manor Master Sima had originally thought that the silver-masked man would bring his men over to support them, and that they would definitely win. Who would have thought that Yun Chujio, who was only at the 9th level of the spirit transformation realm, would actually go crazy? All the attacks aimed at her spirit energy were blocked by the sword intent surrounding her body. However, the treasured sword in her hand was like the god of death, continuously reaping human lives. Manor Master Sima's legs were a little weak. Seeing the people wearing the black mask falling one after another, he was afraid. If he didn't escape, he wouldn't be able to live. He turned around and ran, afraid that if he was a step slower, he would be killed by Yun Chujio. However, he had only run a few steps when a treasured sword came from behind and nailed him to the ground. He turned his head with much effort and saw that the young girl who seemed to be possessed by a demon was staring at him coldly, and there were corpses all over the ground around her. Manor Master Sima felt that his life force was being drained bit by bit from his body. He was unwilling to accept this. Everything had clearly been arranged seamlessly, and Lord Silvermask had clearly brought people to support him. Why had he failed in the end? It was her, it was all her. It was all this devil-like young lady. She was not human. She was a devil. Manor Master Sima watched as the devil-like young lady walked towards him step by step. Endless fear surged up in him, and he suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. He was actually scared to death. Yun Chujio walked up to him and pulled out the treasured sword that was inserted into his body. Her eyes, which were filled with purple lightning, did not have a trace of emotion. There was only a frenzied killing intent. At this moment, the black bead in her dantian trembled. Yun Chujio felt a sharp pain in her dantian. The lightning in her eyes gradually faded away, and she fainted on the ground. Come and read on our website Wuxia World site. Thanks behind her, Zhao Hui and the others cried out in surprise and quickly ran over. They fed her pills and called out to her. The surviving demonic beasts also began to roar in low voices. After experiencing life and death, it had nothing to do with whether they were demonic beasts or humans. At this moment, they were all comrades who fought side by side. Yun Chuchio quickly woke up. When she saw the corpses all over the ground, she didn't have the time to sort out her thoughts. She said in a somewhat hoarse voice, "Let's leave this place quickly." The Divine Devil Hall has a secret technique that can transmit information. Perhaps the Divine Devil Hall will send someone over soon. Zhao Hui and the other two quickly helped Yun Chuzhou to sit on the back of a man-sized sawtooth elephant. They then sped away with the remaining dozens of demonic beasts. Yun Chuzhou sat on the back of the elephant with her brows furrowed. She did not know if it was because she had used up all her energy during the slaughter, but she felt that there was nothing in her dantian. There was not even a trace of spiritual power. In the past, even if she had awakened her power when she was stimulated, everything would still be normal after she woke up. However, why was it like this time? Could it be that the awakening caused by the killing intent had sequelae? Just as she was extremely worried, she vaguely felt that spiritual energy was slowly being generated in her dantian. Only then did her heart heave a sigh of relief. Fortunately, she had been scared to death. At this moment, Zhao Hui said, "Junior Sister Yun, after passing through the valley entrance, we can use the talisman normally. Then we can ask the sect for help." Zhao Hui paused at this point and asked tentatively, "Junior Sister Yun, how should we report this to the sect?" Yun Chuzhou could not help but look at Zhao Hui with a faint smile. This Zhao Hui was quite tactful. She curled the corners of her lips and said, "How do you mean? Wasn't it just my fiancé who appeared at the critical moment to save us?" You're tuning in to the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.